Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto walks away from his family Sasuke bashing harem. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Dark-Hearted Dragon's Master and link in the description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. Naruto couldn't stop himself from glaring at his sensei. Once again, Kakashi-sensei seemed to be playing favorites. What do you mean, you can't train me yet? He asked, watching Sasuke try to get up the tree to no avail. You told us that you would train us. Not just Sasuke team. He yelled. And why do I have to guard Tazuna? Naruto, Kakashi began, trying to remain calm. You and Sakura already know the tree climbing exercise. Sakura herself has near perfect chakra control. And from the fight you gave Zabuza the other day, you are the likely candidate to guard for right now. You already know several good jutsus, and the fact that you know water walking means that you can even teach Sakura while the two of you watch him. Kakashi explained, trying to get the blonde to drop it with the only thing he could figure. The blonde's ego. Now that should seal the deal. He thought, looking at the genin. Now, it is your sensei's orders to go protect Azuna while he finishes the bridge Naruto. He yelled, pointing toward the bridge. Face it, dope. Sakura sighed, watching Sasuke continuing to try. You have no real hope of accomplishing your goals. She growled. But my Sasuke-kun does. She said, typical fangirl motif. Now go be a good dog and guard the bridge builder. You're going with him, Sakura. Kakashi growled, walking to her. Now, you and Naruto had better get your asses over there, now. He shouted. As soon as he said that though, Sakura looked around for Naruto to find that he wasn't even there anymore. Looking closer, Sakura was able to tell that Naruto was walking away, even as the darkness of the night was crowding around her. As soon as she moved about 50 feet however, she heard more and more grunts from the trees where Kakashi was working on Sasuke's exercises. Turning back to the clearing, the pink-haired fangirl immediately began to run in the opposite direction, back to Sasuke, if only to watch him. Damn him. Naruto cursed, crossing his hands over his stomach. Damn that bitch Sakura. He yelled, growing beyond anger and hurt feelings towards his one-time crush. Even as he cursed, he sprinted, climbing through the branches of the trees and then sprinting through them, consciously aware of the river coming up in the distance. I may not have a bloodline limit, but that shouldn't stop me from being treated the same. He yelled to himself, channeling chakra into his hands and slamming a fist into a large tree trunk. Surprising himself further, he found that his hand was stuck in the hole of the tree. Feeling for more of a grip, Naruto was able to retract his whole arm out of the tree. But as he pulled out of it, his hand came across something that he could almost swear felt metallic at the touch. Channeling more chakra, he was able to rip out the entire side of the tree, his hand burning with pain only temporarily before it was healed by the Kyuubi. Looking now at what he was holding, he could only sigh. All the chakra power, and all I get is a sheathed kunai. He thought, looking it over. At first glance, he was able to determine that this kunai was definitely different. Most kunai went into a group set in one pouch. But this one was definitely better. It was only one, with no straps to get confused with. The handle looked a good couple of inches longer than a normal kunai, making Naruto think that maybe it was mainly a non-throwing kunai. Looking at the hilt, where handle met sheath, he saw on both sides on the cloth, something that looked extremely out of place. Some kind of seal was doing something for this kunai. Looking around, Naruto slightly smiled to himself upon realizing that nobody was around. Quickly sliding the kunai to next to his real pouch, Naruto took off once again. Continuously turning toward the bridge, Naruto was able to place a type of trap for anyone that may come near the bridge. Hopefully anyone who he didn't know approaching the bridge will set off the traps. And if they went off, he would be able to find them and hopefully eliminate the opponents. Quickly arriving at the bridge now, Naruto saw that nobody was there to work on the bridge. God damn it. Naruto yelled, his fists clenching in absent rage. This is not supposed to happen. It's my fucking birthday. He yelled, slamming his fist into a girder in the unfinished part of the bridge. Banging himself in the head a few times, Naruto realized something. If Tazuna wasn't here, he could lure out Zabuza if he was still alive. Looking around, Naruto was once again smiling his fox-like grin. Doing his signature hand seal, Naruto produced nearly 20 shadow clones. The clones immediately dispersed from the bridge, several going to protect Inari and his mom, the village itself, in case Zabuza got severely pissed off, and others like them. Looking around in case maybe someone was watching, Naruto made another 10 clones, this time using Henjei and disguising them as the bridge workers. Breathing a sigh of relief, he smiled as he produced a large amount of white chakra-enhanced smoke out of his pores. Making a series of symbols, Naruto released his jutsu. Nothing could be seen from the outside, but as the smoke died down, nobody would be the wiser, as they could only see Naruto and the bridge workers now, time to go train. He smiled evilly, walking away from the bridge area. As he walked to the edge of the forest, 4 Naruto shadow clones arrived and quickly took up guard posts at each side of the bridge. Naruto was presently sitting on a large rock, doing something that maintaining the dope mask prohibited him from doing meditating. He had trained himself to near exhaustion, and now that he was sure that he was near that point as to what would power his clones on the bridge and around it. It's times like this that everything seems better. He thought, his mind wandering around the river, the trees, even the people in the village. Sudden noises caused his eyes open immediately. Looking around frantically, he felt something coming from the bridge. Jumping from the rock rather quickly, he ran flat out for the bridge, only to come up short when a dozen kunai and shurikens landed in front of him, startling him to the point that he almost fell on his ass. Looking into the trees, he saw the hunter nin that had helped Zabuza escape earlier. "Get out of my way, you overgrown witch doctor," he shouted, drawing a kunai. "You know as well as I do that Zabuza just landed himself in a hell of a lot of trouble," he advised, looking around for anything that would help him. He knew that he would be able to handle Zabuza, at least for a little while. Enough time for everyone to get there, or so he hoped. He was brought into the now by sharp stabbing pains in his hands, piercing him into the tree behind him. Looking at his hands now, Naruto bore witness to his hands behind stabbed into the tree with senbon needles. Multiple needles were now in each of his hands, effectively pinning him there for whatever the fake hunter nin was going to do to him. Quickly turning toward her, he saw that she was slowly pacing, almost seeming to be prowling around him, her hands holding more senbon needles. "Next, I will stop those idiotic and neurotic excuses of shinobi from getting at Zabuza-sama while he kills the bridge builder," she growled, her voice breaking as she tried to hide her emotions behind her mask. She looked up into the sky momentarily, which immediately cost her. Naruto couldn't help the anger that welled up inside of him. "Make her pay." He heard Kyuubi growl inside of him. He could feel claws growing out of his fingers even as his incisors elongated. He could feel something else going on, but before he knew it, the pain in his hands were gone. "You won't even touch them," he yelled, the senbon needles popping onto the ground. "I will kill you first," he yelled, trying to stand up, feeling no tug on his hands. Aku looked at him, shock evident on her face as she saw his eyes. They had turned from the normal blue eyes and now looked as if they were golden red and had slits for the iris. She looked at his now free hands, scared that he had somehow broken free of the needles binding him to the tree. Reaching into her back pouch, she pulled out the rest of her senbon needles, immediately flicking them at the boy in front of her, surprising him as the needles hit him once again in his wrists, but more then stabbed into his feet, slamming his feet into the ground. Grunting against the pain, Naruto quickly speared Haku with a severe stare that made her gulp. She was instantly frozen to the ground, her eyes quivering with fear as she tried to move away from whatever was going on with the young boy. She was trapped by Naruto's eyes, their golden appearance now revealing a show of twirling and an almost hypnotic look. Her face was still hidden by her mask, even though she could smell her own fear in the air, so whatever was happening to Naruto was most definitely able to smell it. Naruto was in a fog of rage as he struggled against the senbon needles in his arms. He then looked around as darkness clouded over him slightly. "Let me handle this." He heard Kyuubi growl from inside his head. "Didn't you already try to handle it?" he asked the fox quietly, ripping a few tendons out of his hands, trying to free himself from the dozen or so needles that were stuck now in each of his hands. "You held me back." He heard the demon growl. "Let me handle this bitch," he ordered. Naruto calmly looked at the hunter nin as she stood there, panting behind her mask. Naruto could only grin his impish grin. "No killing her?" he asked, hoping just to get her off of him so he could go distract Zabuza long enough to allow Kakashi and the others to arrive. "You care for humans too much," Kyuubi growled. "But we have an agreement," the demon muttered, laughing maniacally as he felt Naruto give control of his body over. "I'll wake you up when it's over." Aku was jolted out of her trance as she heard laughing coming from the blonde-haired boy. Looking at his hands, she saw her needles were being pushed back out of the wounds once again. "Come closer, little girl." She heard a deeper voice calling out, causing her body to move on its own. She calmly and slowly moved toward the young boy even as he stood up, his golden eyes never leaving hers. She stood before him with every pore of her being standing on end in fear. She didn't notice him pulling out a rather long kunai that he must have found in the trees or bought it in the village however. But she did notice him swiftly and deftly slice open her outfit from groin to neck. She was once again betrayed when she tried to move away and all she could do was gasp. What shocked her most was when he brought the bottom of the blade handle up and smashed her mask into pieces. Naruto smiled sinisterly at her, his eyes glowing brighter. "I am gonna change that attitude of yours, girl," he growled, bending over and picking up her own senbon needles and showing them to her. "I wonder what you would do if I did this," he sighed. In the blink of an eye, Haku suddenly gasped as she was pierced by her own senbon needles. 3 needles were put in each of her breasts, right above each of her nipples, causing white-hot electricity to erupt out of her breasts, coursing down her body to rest between her thighs. Aku was quickly reduced to being on the verge of screaming out in pleasure as she looked at him. Then she did scream as she felt 2 more needles spearing into her muscles right above her clitoris. The sensations of the triple assault caused her to orgasm heavily, screaming out from it right before she fell to the ground, or she would have had Naruto not caught her as she fell. He quickly put her on her back as he quickly eased the needles out of her chakra points that he had stabbed into her. She quickly started panting as he blew on her nipples. "That should help you with your pain," he explained, his hands working the other senbon out of her body. Blowing more onto what he considered to be pretty painful points, Naruto's body blew chakra over the girl, causing her to lose consciousness. Naruto pulled away as he saw her pass out. Another explosion sounded, this time much closer to the bridge than he would have thought. Turning back into himself, Kyuubi let him take control, telling him that Haku was taken care of. Looking down, Naruto fought the nosebleed coming up as he saw Haku's near-naked form lying there. "What did you do, Kyuubi?" he asked a fox, listening to the fox intently. "I taught her a lesson," the fox explained, laughing as Naruto left the area at a dead sprint toward the bridge, the laughter taking a lighter tone, one that Naruto couldn't help think was feminine. He didn't see how Haku was convulsing, her eyes closed as she panted, her body squirming as it began to slowly glow. Her body seemed to glow. The glowing turned an icy blue, encompassing her entire body. As it died down, Haku's body seemed to be changed. Her breasts had been a small B cup, but now they looked to be a high D cup, the rest of her body looking to be changed as well, its form changed to look more voluptuous. He also couldn't hear her panting out "my master" as she slept. Kakashi was bored doing his activities. He was right now sitting on a tree limb reading one of his favorite Icha Paradise novels as he watched Sasuke continue to try to climb that damn tree. The Uchiha had been trying without success to get much more training done in the manner of the tree climbing exercise. He was even now having trouble getting to the top of the tree. Sakura on the other hand was on her 3rd trek up the tree, a kunai in her teeth as she smiled at herself. As she landed however, she looked over at Sasuke as he continued working. Her face immediately fell as she walked over to his tree right before he fell. He cursed once again as he rubbed his backside. Unfortunately, he didn't realize that his kunai wasn't in his hand at that point. Kakashi and Sakura eyes widened at the sudden noise coming from above, seeing the kunai coming from the tree above Sasuke. It came crashing down toward them. Sakura was able to move out of the way, but Sasuke wasn't able to get out of the way in time, and the kunai stuck deep into his left hip, between his groin and hip. His scream seemed to fill the clearing, amplified only by Sakura and her deafening scream that Kakashi had come to expect. "Why me?" he thought, rubbing his head angrily as he ran over to Sasuke and the screaming Sakura. Over an hour away, at the edge of a small village by the forest, a dark red void appeared. It had the height of a 7-foot-tall human, with the width of a large boulder, looking intimidating as it swirled, centered over a tree branch. Leaves, loose tree branches, and small pieces of wood were slowly rotating both with and against the current of the void. The edges of the void could be seen, twisting and turning, sending out massive amounts of energy as it seemed to almost expand. As if with a foreboding sense of danger, 2 figures appeared out of the void, holding a backpack on their shoulder. Stepping further away from the dangerous void, one could notice something about how they were dressing. Both of them wore the same color of what must have been a high-detailed combat outfit. Their boots were a different story altogether. Covering their black combat boots were a pair of shin guards with an emblem of a soaring dragon amongst a massive cross. Around their necks could be seen wearing a wrap of multiple lengths expanding around their necks and behind their shoulders. Each one of them bore some sort of large blade at their backs, arranged behind their hips. The larger one was obviously a rather large male. On closer inspection revealed that he had a slim build and numerous cuts on his face from battles long fought. His face shone the hint of a smile that caused his blue eyes to shine brighter than even his blonde hair. Looking at the artifact in his hand, he couldn't help but yell out in joy. "Kushina. We did it." Kushina, the slightly smaller woman at his side, could only smile at her husband. Her purple hair shining brightly against the darkness brought out by the red void behind her. "Yeah, Minato, and it only took us 13 years. She shouted, grabbing the artifact. It was a large orb, the ball swirling with unspent energy. Holding the orb around the side was a rather sizable dragon, its hands and wings folded forward to hold the orb. "Now if only we could get the chakra we used back," she growled, looking around. She idly twirled a piece of her hair that had fallen out of its confined ponytail. "Suu, what are you thinking?" she asked. She smacked her husband as she saw the slight blood poking out of his nose. "I wasn't thinking anything like that, Kushina," he pleaded, rubbing his face. "We need to get to Konoha," he replied, his eyes smiling in love of his wife. "Agreed," Kushina growled, glad that he was even willing to work with her. The sooner I see our son the better. She grumbled. Yes dear. He grumbled, looking around the trees. I know these trees. He explained, watching his wife skeptic view. Don't you dare look at me like that, missy. He growled. Grabbing hold of her shoulders, he pointed her toward a set of trees. Those trees are the trees that we stayed that night in, where Sarutobi kept thinking that that was where we conceived Naruto to begin with. He explained further. Oh no. Kushina shrieked, looking around to her husband. The eye. She yelled. We didn't, she began, but was stopped by her husband's hand over her mouth. Kushina, whatever happens, I am sure that our son is fine. He smiled. Besides, don't you think we should see how Tazuna is doing? We haven't heard from Wave in a long-ass time. Even before the Kyuubi attacked. He frowned. Okay, but no drinking for you. Kushina growled, following her husband slowly walking through the trees near the border of Wave. Tazuna was sitting in an armchair in his house, his nose clogged and a box of Kleenex in his hands. Damn kids and their colds. He growled at himself. He watched through his weary eyes as Kakashi came running into the house, screaming for Tsunami and bandages. Tazuna could only wince at the loud noises coming from the man. For a fucking shinobi, you're not very fucking quiet. He growled, holding his head right before he sneezed. Kakashi was sitting waiting as Tsunami looked at the kunai now stabbing into Sasuke's hip. She had only been looking at it for a few minutes, with no result. Suddenly, before he could do anything, she reached over and yanked the kunai out with a disgusting pop in the socket. Sasuke's previous low-toned mews were now replaced with the Uchiha screaming in pain. Kakashi suddenly felt a horrendous amount of anger and aggravation coming at him, as if somehow something was about to happen to him that would change his world for better or for worse. Turning back to Tsunami, he could only sigh before glaring at her. He had his orders after all. Tsunami, do what you can with him, please. We have to help the future Hokage become what he will be. He growled, watching her attempt to walk out of the room. Your future Hokage is at the bridge, protecting me. Tazuna began, interrupting him from saying any more. Shouldn't you go and tell him about me not coming? He asked. The Dobe should know by now that you are not feeling well, or at least that is what you told us a little bit ago. Sakura began, holding down Sasuke as he screamed into her hand. He shouldn't be stupid enough to actually think that he would be able to beat my Sasuke-kun in anything, much less becoming Hokage. Naruto is far stronger than any of you think, little girl. Tsunami growled, walking away into the kitchen. Zabuza was getting fed up. He had been going through the damn forest to the fucking bridge so that he could kill that old man Tazuna. Now he was bleeding from several cuts in his arms, his legs, and several kunai were embedded in his back from some kind of shinobi traps and exploding clones that seemed to be coming out of nowhere. Looking around silently, he realized that he was coming to within sight of the bridge. Looking deeper toward the river, he saw that Tazuna was there, along with most of his living workers. In fact, as Abusa looked at them, he saw that the old man was working with more workers than ever before. Growling at himself, he set himself to doing the hand seals for his mist cover jutsu. Just as he finished the last seal, a boulder that he hadn't noticed before jumped out and slammed into its back, exploding on impact, showing around it with several sets of shuriken. What the hell is going on? He asked himself, looking behind him only to find the same he had been seeing every time one of those damn traps exploded. Shuriken or kunai embedded in every tree or in the ground around him. Thanks to my sword, I don't have to worry about my spine being severed at least. He thought wistfully, crawling forward toward the bridge, coming ever closer to his target, hoping that Haku had held back those shinobi enough to have them out of the picture for this. Haku was currently still on cloud orgasm. She hadn't been able to move since Naruto had dominated her. She still felt the tingles from his chakra coursing through her body. Opening her eyes, she saw that a rather cute-looking badger was looking down at her. Hello you. She smiled, her eyes focusing even more than she thought possible. Looking around for her master, she realized that he must have gone to the bridge to stop Zabuza. Immediately standing up, she immediately felt a draft going across her front. Looking down, she saw that her clothes were still cut clean down to the bottom. Blushing heavily, she picked up one of her senbon that had fallen from her chest, she began to tear the bottom of her jacket off and tried to stitch it back together. But it was only then that she realized that she had grown in more ways than one. Immediately conjuring up an ice mirror, she wasn't all that shocked to see a mirror pop instantly out of thin air, but what really shocked her was that it was the size of a house. Immediately taking cares about the mirror, she began to alter her wardrobe to be more suitable. Sarutobi could only sigh as he looked around his office, avoiding the paperwork that sat on his desk. He lowered his hat to hide the view of the monstrosity that sat there, hoping it would go away. Suddenly, right as he turned to look at the pictures of the Hokages of the past, all of the pictures blew off of the wall, hitting the floor with a rather loud crash, ending in the picture of his old friend Arashi, the fourth Hokage. I would hate for you to see how far your beloved village has fallen, my old friend. especially in regards to your son. He thought, taking a toke off of his pipe before turning around to see outside his windows. Feeling something happen in the air, he smiled. You can come out now, Jiraiya. He frowned. You have no reason for using that technique of yours in here. The lone figure seemed to ooze out of a nearby wall. Sorry about that, sensei. Force of habit. Jiraiya, the toad Sannin smiled, his eyes downcast and sad. 13 years huh? He asked. Yes. Sarutobi sighed. I have no idea what I am going to do about everything. What do you mean, sensei? The white-haired Sannin asked, his hair shaking lightly. Minato's son, Jiraiya. Sarutobi explained. I have a feeling Konoha is about to be rocked to its foundation rather soon. He sighed, looking around at the office, then at Minato's picture now resting on the ground. I feel like something has already begun to happen. He said sadly. Minato and Kushina were running to wave when all of a sudden Minato stopped, dragging a hand through his longer than normal hair. Stop, love. He growled, holding out his hand. What's the matter, Minato-kun? His wife asked, running back to him. Something is wrong with the seals at the village. Something is wrong. I'm needed, love. He growled. Oh hell no, you're no longer Hokage, Minato. You know that as much as I do. She growled, inching toward her short sword at her waist. But what about our son? Minato began. What if it's him that something is wrong with? He asked. Okay, fine, damn it. She sighed sadly. I know that you are worried about our friends and everything. Just go. But what about you? He asked. I never really cared for that village. At least not like you did. Kushina said, looking up to the now cloudless sky. It was only my home because you were there. She began, running in the same direction as before. I will see you later, love. He sighed, hoping that she would forgive him for what he was really doing now. He had information to get, and the only way to do that would be to go to his former senseis and pry it from them. He desperately wanted to find out the fate of his son. Chapter 2. Naruto quickly reached the end of the tree line. His eyes zoomed around the river, trying to look for anything unusual. He had constantly been feeling his clones, dispelling ever since Haku had attacked him. He had even heard several of his exploding clones going off on whoever was approaching the bridge. Immediately seeing nothing amiss, he walked more stealthily toward the bridge, then he heard more screaming. He immediately unsheathed his tri-blade, hoping not to get caught unaware. Looking toward the far end of the bridge, he saw that a large mist was forming around it, encompassing over half of the end of the bridge. Suddenly, a large whirling sound made Naruto's instincts kick into overdrive and duck to the floor of the bridge. The sound of a rather loud thud resulted in Naruto raising his head up, and then he could only shake his head. Right in front of his head, or at least right above his head, was the blade of Zabuza's sword. Growling at himself, he raised up before anybody could get up behind him, friend or otherwise. And to think that I believed Haku could at least hold off one of you. A loud gruff voice called out. As Naruto stood up, he saw that the mist was clearing quickly. Zabuza was hunched over the side of the bridge, blood was covering over 60% of his body, though none was on his face. But at least that cyclops of a sensei of yours isn't here. He growled. My sensei has nothing to do with how I fight. Naruto yelled, getting ready for a fight. Taking a look around, at least hoping for some kind of way to give him at least some kind of edge. Zabuza knew way too much about fighting, including with a sword. He had more reach than Naruto, and even as Naruto thought about it, he knew that he had no way of beating the man, even though the man looked like he was about to bleed to death. Yeah, well, we will see, boy. Zabuza growled, hunkering down on the edge of the bridge. Before Naruto could do anything, a large wave of water erupted off of the edge of the bridge, knocking him off of his feet again. He shook the water away from his face as he clung to the top of the river. Looking down, Naruto saw that more than half of his body was in the river, struggling to get free. Feeling something odd, Naruto looked up a little bit and saw that his weapons were gone. Looking for something, Gaki? He heard Zabuza laugh. Looking up, Naruto saw that Zabuza was once again standing upright, his large sword once again in his grip. In his other hand was none other than his own weapon. It looked like it was caked in ice, even though Naruto couldn't see why. Then before he could react, mist appeared once again, swallowing the both of them in grey darkness. Naruto quickly closed his eyes, trying to get a better grasp on things. The first time he had seen this attack, he had been more than worried and afraid. He hadn't been unable to see for most of his life. And when all of a sudden one of his senses were cut completely off, it would be hard for something like that not to be worried. Shaking his head, Naruto quickly moved to what he believed to be a safe area, at least from what he could smell, under the bridge. Looking around again, he was able to smell the tang of blood very close to him as he stood there. Fingering a kunai, he held it up to his throat to protect it. Quickly moving around, Naruto fell into the water, barely missing what would have been a severe sword wound as Zabuza roared over him. He could hear him growling and screaming as he floated there in the water. You're only prolonging the inevitable, kid. The man screamed, looking around in the water. First I'm gonna kill you, then I'm gonna go after your pink-haired friend and that little brooding shit. He yelled. Then it's gonna be that Cyclops, since he thinks that him that other bitch boy of his are the only ones that can even respond to me trying to kill the old man. Then the old man won't have anybody to cover for his ass and he's gonna be my next target. Naruto saw red as soon as he heard the man above him talk about his teammates. He would be damned if he would allow his team or the old man for that matter come to harm. Quickly thinking of something that would help him, Naruto saw that he would need to come up with something really creative to do it. Making several clones, he gave them the mental commands to henge and perform a list of things in really quick order. Seeing his clone swimming slowly under the water, he looked back up at his target with a grim face. He slowly began to allow himself to drift upwards into the water. If Zabuza thought he was gonna have an easy fight, he would be damned if he let it come to that. Zabuza was standing there, knowing that the little brat was going to surface sooner or later, he was going to enjoy the look on the boy's face as he was gutted. As soon as he saw the kid, he would make him pay for causing him so much pain. Hell, even now he was smoldering and in severe pain from all the clones that had hit him and exploded. He had hoped that Haku would have kept the kid away long enough to allow Zabuza to kill the old man and his crew. Now, Zabuza was gonna be able to kill the old man, but only if the old man would show up and the kid would just go away. But even as he thought that the kid should have come up already, he was finally aware of a large amount of killer intent was being sent his way, almost potent enough to actually move some of the water away from him as he stood on the water. Turning every way he could, he saw that the kid was not only above water, but he was actually running at him, that weird-looking sword now in his hands. Looking closer at his face, Zabuza saw that the kid was enraged. Going through a long series of hand seals, he could only hope his chakra would hold up. He called out Water Dragon Strike. And watched as the half-formed dragon flew at the enraged kid. He was absolutely and completely surprised with what happened next. The kid used his blade and blew right through his dragon attack. The blade seemed to just pass right on through it. Gripping his own sword once again, he saw that the kid was running at him with glowing red eyes and was now going through a zigzag pattern over the water. Minato was now closing in on the outskirts of Konoha, Kushina at his side. He knew that something was up in Konoha. He had planned on going straight to Wave, but something was telling him to go home first. Looking to his wife, he saw her hesitating as they neared the village. "What's the matter, dearest?" he asked, stopping on a branch along the road. Kushina was only able to stop and look at her husband, then to the sky. "I just keep getting the feeling that something is going on somewhere away from here." She sighed. "Something is going to happen," she explained looking at her hands. "And one of us shouldn't be here. And you know it." "What in this world?" he asked with a sigh, looking around for a second, waiting for his wife to try and explain further. "No, you blonde wacko." She growled, slightly smiling at her husband's rare goofiness. "A Konoha. I know you are getting some kind of feeling to get your butt to the office." "Yeah, like something needs to be done real quick." He groaned. "Yeah, I know. But what I am feeling is that someone is needed somewhere else. And can you honestly tell me that you feel our son in there?" Kushina asked. "I am worried about our son." He sighed, rubbing her hands over her face. "You thought it would be best to get here instead of going to see Tazuna and seeing him. I am going to Wave. Something might be going on there." She frowned, turning around suddenly. Her eyes were wide as saucers as she felt something happening. "Like a demon fight or something," she exclaimed, now taking off at a dead sprint. "Stay and take care of your business," she shouted, her ponytail wiggling behind her as she ran all out. "Great," Minato yelled, slapping his sides. "Now I have to go through Konoha by myself," he shouted, walking slowly toward the gate, creating a henge around himself. He quickly headed for his old office, hoping to run into his old friend. Looking at the Chunin guards working the main gate, he saw them not even looking up, even as more and more people seemed to be flooding the city in and out. Shaking his head, he could barely contain the growl from leaving his mouth. "Aren't you gonna check papers or something?" he asked them fretfully, trying to sound desperate. "Don't need to, Gramps," the Chunin on the right replied, itching the scar under his right eye. "There hasn't been enough commotion lately to warrant paper checks, especially since the war," the other said, barely noticing the glares that were being given to the two of them. "Yeah, well, how would I meet the Hokage then?" he asked, fingering his secreted pouch in his wrist. "There's a waiting to see the old codger. It seems there are a lot of things going on considering a resident," the right guard growled, finally looking up at Minato's hinged form. Minato was so irritated with the two that he could barely make his hands relax from clenching. "Thanks. I'll see you later," he growled, walking through the gate and heading to the Hokage office. Naruto was quickly rising to the fact that no matter what he did, he was quickly losing ground the missing nin. Sure, he was mindlessly fighting the man, but even Naruto could tell he was just fighting the inevitable. He was fighting a shinobi of the water on a fucking river for crying out loud. Sword strikes were quickly recovered and parried in an almost instinctive pattern. Jutsus at this point were where he was losing, however. He hated to admit it, but he should have known better. Fighting a mist shinobi on water was maybe one of Naruto's stupidest things that he could have ever done. Even as he batted away another sword strike, he was caught by surprise by a resulting kick from his oversized opponent. "Haven't you learned anything yet?" Kid Zabuza yelled, watching the boy fly. "You can't stand a chance against me," he yelled, watching Naruto stand back up. He couldn't help but smirk at the kid's determination. In Konoha, Hana Inyazuka was idly walking towards the vet clinic, the Himera triplets at her side. She was looking around, hoping to figure out what was keeping things so damn quiet lately. "What is missing today?" she asked herself, looking back at the triplets. "Something seems to be missing," she explained. "Nothing that we know of," the female of the triplets replied, putting her head under Hana's hand. As she continued walking down the paths, she saw that there was a large commotion at the local raiment stand. She could just barely hear the screaming sounds of the owner, Ichiruka, and his daughter Am. But as she walked closer, she heard the loud sounds of someone getting the crap kicked out of them. As soon as she was within real sight of the stand, she saw several people being kicked out of the shop's interior. She had to smile as she saw that the two being kicked out of the shop were shinobi. And Ichiruka never kicked shinobi out of his stand. She quickly took note that the owner was now coming out of the shop, a halberd in his hand, surprising her, the bystanders around the shop, and even the triplets. What even shocked Hana more was that the halberd was slightly crackling with lightning chakra and was pointed at the shinobi. She focused her hearing more and heard what it was all about, and she could easily find that she agreed with the decision. "Don't you ever come into my shop again," the man screamed. "I know all about Sarutobi's law. And you know what? I don't care if my shop is mainly a shinobi stand for some. But that does not give you the right to insult a village hero by simply whispering in my shop. Even behind closed doors, that law is still in effect. If I ever catch you in here again, I will enact that law," the man yelled. "I'm a Chunin, old man," one of the men growled, inching towards his holster. "You can't threaten a shinobi like this," he warned the man. "I can if I am in fact a retired Chunin with a daughter," Ichiruka yelled, moving his halberd to the side slightly. "My daughter knows all about the past issues, especially when it comes to Naruto. And guess what, you little shit," he yelled, his mouth practically foaming now. "She still cares about him. She is still his friend. And when he comes back from his mission, she will still be there for him. Try otherwise to dissuade her, and I will slit your throat like you wouldn't believe," he explained. "Oh, and the Hokage will know about this," he growled, watching as the two slowly got back to their feet. Figuring she had had enough, she motioned to the triplets, signaling their attention. "Go fetch me those two imbeciles. Hokage-sama should know about this more than anything," she explained, walking up the stand owner. "What happened?" she asked, watching her nin dogs go after the two running Chunin. "I was serving lunch hour and I heard my daughter screaming," Ichiruka began. "I looked around the corner and saw those two there harassing her." He frowned, watching Hana's hands clench. "They asked her why she wouldn't go out with them." He sighed. Then the other one mentioned that she would rather have the demon of Konoha instead of a real man. Said that she wouldn't be able to fight it anymore since Naruto had just left on his first C-rank mission just a couple of days ago. "Okay, that's enough on that one," Hana growled, her teeth clenched as she followed her three companions at a dead run. Minato had had enough. He was in the stand when he had heard the two men talking about his son. Grabbing his pouch, he used a quick shunshin and appeared at the Namika's residence. Well, he would have if he would have been able to get past his own seals. He appeared at the outside of his own gates, looking at the darkened area around his former home with a loud growl. He was unable to recognize any of the landscape for the large amounts of foliage and trees around the place. Windows were broken into, doors were forced open by the trees, and the grass was up to his hips. Quickly stopping himself from growling, Minato used the Hirai Shin and appeared at the bottom of the Hokage tower. People were suddenly running away as he appeared, screaming stupid things like "Arg," "Ghost," and "Run for your lives." He couldn't help but sigh as he looked around before walking up into the building. He may have been under a henge, but his jutsu were more than recognizable from the war with Iwa. Walking up to the staircase leading upstairs to the office, he could only frown as he looked at the nerdy little secretary picking her nails with a kunai while typing on a typewriter. "Is Sarutobi-sensei in?" he asked with a slight growl. The secretary stared up at him with a drawn breath as she stopped typing and picking at her nails. "Yeah, but he isn't taking visitors," she sighed, going back to picking her nails. After a few minutes, she looked back up at him. "What do you want, old-timer?" she yelled. Standing up quickly, she pointed to the door. "I don't see any fucking leaf headband, so you're not going in there. Now fucking beat it, you fucking pervert," she screamed, now red in the face from the exertion. Okay, for one thing, you must really be out of shape to be exerted like that from just yelling at me. So, if you want to apologize for yelling at me, I won't use that kunai in your hand to slit your fucking throat. Minato growled, gesturing to the door. As for going in there, he began. I will walk into that damn door and talk to the cage, whether you announce me or not. He shouted. Sarutobi shook himself out of his pipe-smoking thoughts by the noise on the other side of the door. What the hell? He asked himself, feeling a sense of doom sliding in. He was just about to get up from his chair when the door seemed to explode inward. Sarutobi groaned as he looked at what was transpiring. An old man was slowly walking his way into the door followed by his secretary, who was even now screaming out about the man walking in on the Hokage's office. I hope this doesn't involve the wave country. He said sadly to himself. Out you stupid girl. The old man growled behind him, turning away from Sarutobi ever so slightly to stare at the secretary. Your Hokage is safe with me. He stated, looking back to the desk. With a small nod to his secretary, Sarutobi was only slightly looking at the old man as the secretary seemed to scream out of the office. Now, kind sir, what is the idea behind showing up at my office unannounced today? He asked, trying not to sound irate. The old man visibly stiffened as he walked forward more. Oh cut the crap you old lecher. He growled. And you must have lost your abilities over the last decade. What? The Hokage yelled in outrage, stopping himself from jumping out of the chair and killing the old man. You can't even see through a fucking hinge. The old man growled. And where is that old ability that you were so proud of? Oh yeah, the ability to sense chakra levels. He growled in outrage. Well. Who are you old man, to speak of me as such? Sarutobi growled, his hands inching towards his kunai pouch under the table. The old man was now right in front of the table, looking down at him. I am the only reason you are still in office, old man. You should be trying to dispel my jutsu, but for some odd reason, you don't want to know who I am. He replied, his chin in his hand. Sarutobi was instantly angry as he bolted out of his seat. The henge was impressive, and as the Hokage tried to look through it, he saw the beginnings of blonde spiky hair. Naruto. He shouted, not realizing the higher height of the other man. Why aren't you on your mission? He yelled. Are you blind now too, my friend? The old man, now degrading his jutsu, replied. My son is not me. He growled, the jutsu finally dropping to reveal to Sarutobi his former student. Minato. Sarutobi grunted in disbelief, swiftly falling down to his desk. Naruto was quickly finding the only way he could survive the endeavor with Zabuza. And his endurance was helping greatly. He was trying to pull off one last jutsu. His only jutsu that would work in a watery environment like this. Looking around in an attempt to find Zabuza, who had hidden himself in another of his missed jutsus. Quickly creating the hand seals, Naruto quickly turned his henge into his patented sexy jutsu and then made more hand seals as he created more and more shadow clones, surrounding the area around them with peppered orange colors. Zabuza was silently crushing his way through the mist, bearing down quickly on the blonde, not even worrying about the hand seals that were being made. Nothing could save this kid now. He thought as he lifted his sword high. Just as he was about to slam his sword into the boy's midsection and thereby slicing him in half, he stumbled in the water at what he saw. A young girl in a miniskirt with an orange jacket opened and not covering anything to the imagination. Zabuza could barely contain the blood from his nose as he beheld the creature in front of him. The woman began to walk to him seductively, taking off her jacket as she walked. As soon as she walked over to him, she looped her arm around his neck seductively, causing the man to almost pant. Zabuza had almost let his guard down in front of the girl, her eyes blurring into his own as he released his sword, the blade falling into the water. Boom. The girl smiled in her sugary sweet voice. The force of the resulting explosion caused a large amount of water to explode from the ground, sending Zabuza and Naruto, who had been hiding at the edge of the water, flying back to smash into trees, effectively knocking the two unconscious when they landed. Banko could only walk cautiously through the streets of Konoha, hoping to find out where a certain blonde dope was. She had strangely taken a liking to the boy. Especially since he had somehow cornered her and asked her to train him. Hell, he had blackmailed her, and that alone was something that she could understand very much so. She had helped him only a little bit, and that was mainly with the whole idea of chakra control. She hadn't been able to even have him sign the snake contract that she had been thinking about doing. But now as she thought about it, she had taught him the three most important things that she could train him on quickly enough: Kage Shuriken Jutsu and Kage Kunai Jutsu. I think that's how they are worked, lol. But she wasn't satisfied that she could do only that so easily. According to his school reports, he was literally unable to do a lot of things that was required to be a shinobi. But from her own observations, she saw that he was on the verge of being a human sponge for knowledge, or a hidden prodigy. Even as she walked through the street aimlessly, she vowed that she would not stop until everyone was able to understand what the boy was and not what he contained. Aku was now livid as she sat near the riverbank. If she was capable of more than just sitting there, she would have been mad at Naruto for using such a perverted attack against the Junin missing nin. She looked at the two of them slowly, hoping that the two were alright. Creating a water clone, she sent the clone to check on Zabuza while making a mad dash toward the unconscious blonde. When she got to him though, she realized that the boy had flown farther than her former master and friend. The second thing that she noticed was the rather numerous wounds that the boy had attained during his flight. He had several large branches, or pieces of tree trunks, as the case may be, sticking out of his chest, left arm, and the right side of his stomach. Looking back at his flight path, she saw that he would probably have broken bones, for unlike Zabuza, he had crashed through rock and several boulders. Checking him with a medical jutsu, she saw that his own body was even now healing several broken bones and some of the internal bleeding. Quickly creating another clone, she had it hold Naruto down. Some of the wounds need to be cleaned and the obstructions removed quickly. Leaning down to his ear, she sighed. Naruto-sama, I need to do this to help you heal. Please forgive me for the pain you will receive. She was startled to hear Naruto's screaming voice as she yanked out one of the pieces. The clone had to now work to keep Naruto down as he awoke harshly, cursing the hell's damnation for the pain he was in. Looking down at him in pain, Haku could only think of one thing to do. She quickly made Naruto look at her and then swooped down and kissed him fully on the lips, effectively silencing him. After a few minutes of that, she felt him relax more. Then she leaned back from him, only to grab several more of the protrusions and yank them out, tears now in her eyes as she worked. Naruto was now only slightly reacting to the said pain from the pulls this time. She proceeded to pull more and more of the sickly items from her new master's body and to use water from the river to clean his wounds up, having two clones now working on the still unconscious Abusa. Kushina Uzumaki was currently jumping from tree to tree, or she would like to call it, moving her fucking ass to the point of pain to get to where she felt she needed to be. The feelings that she was having were making her blood boil to the point she knew that she was not looking her best. Trees and bushes were screaming by beneath and around her, making her feel as if they were calling her to move faster and harder to get there. I should be there soon. She thought, looking off into the distance. Shouldn't be long now. Kakashi was currently still trying to calm the screaming pink-haired bimbo off of Sasuke as he tried to get him looked at by the little village's only healer. It had taken him over 3 hours to get her off of the Uchiha long enough to actually look the boy over and take him to the clinic. For something so small, the wound was too close to vital areas to allow his bumbling healing skills to heal on the spot. God damn you Saratobi. He thought. This wouldn't have happened if you would have simply put medic nin training on the female shinobi training. He growled. Kakashi-sensei, he heard Sakura whisper now next to him. When he looked at her finally, he saw that she was still teary-eyed. I don't understand something. What is it? He asked, not really worrying about it. When he got back to Konoha, he was gonna submit that Sakura and Naruto be removed from the shinobi program. He knew that the council will come around when it was concerning Naruto. And that bitch Haruna would fight only feebly when he got the idea into her head about her daughter damn near causing the team their deaths, including the council's next selectee for the role of Hokage, Uchiha Sasuke. Well, she began, looking around the outside of the open-door clinic. Where is Naruto? She asked. He was only supposed to go guard Tazuna. But Tazuna wasn't feeling well and he should be at the house. Naruto isn't back yet. She explained. And I didn't like the sounds of those explosions earlier. Don't worry about it. The dobe is probably being stupid trying to pick flowers for you or something. Kakashi sighed, looking as the pinky seemed to agree with him. Sorry sensei. She sighed, looking back to the Uchiha with a small blush on her cheeks as she looked at the operators taking off the one side of the Uchiha's pants to get to the wound. Hana Inuyasaka and her companions were now walking towards the Hokage Tower, hoping to get another D rank that she and the triplets could handle on her own. Things have been slow as shit lately. She thought, clenching her hands tightly. She quickly opened the door, her face slightly amused as the triplets ran past her as soon as she opened it. Hey wait up. She shouted as she saw them rush up the stairs to the Hokage's office. But as she got there, she saw that the doors were slightly dented inward and that the secretary was looking especially pissed off, like she had just gotten groped by the old man or something. You can't go in there, Hana. Saratobi-sama is currently in a meeting. She explained, making Hana think that the meeting was an unhappy one. Okay, so what do you think I should do? She asked the secretary. You should probably keep a time up for when shinobi could be here to collect missions. She suggested, moving to the other side of the desk. The secretary looked at her like she had grown 3 extra heads or something, then started back to typing on her typewriter. Hana was just about to start screaming at her to pay attention when sounds of shouting from the office caused her to look at the door in fright. Whoever has the Hokage that mad needs to make sure his will is filled out. An old man who was quite angry when he burst into the office a few minutes ago. The secretary explained, looking at the three dogs now perched at the edge of the desk. You and Yazuka ever get the chance to actually housebreak your companions? She asked, causing the dogs to growl at her, only for the dogs to quiet down at Hana's request. I don't think you should insult someone when it comes to the abilities they have, little girl. At least I know that I am a shinobi for a reason, not for some old man to get his jollies off of looking at during the day. And since I am a chunin, I may be able to only do so little, but I am sure I can talk to the Hokage and make it so you lose your job here and immediately get sent to doing D-rank missions for the next 5 years. Hana growled, leaning over the desk as the secretary cringed in her seat. Sarutobi was beside himself, or at least as far beside himself as he could get when you were looking at what was supposed to be a dead former Yondaime Hokage standing next to him. How? He stammered, looking the tall blonde in front of him. He looked so real, so obviously he wasn't a henge or anything. How are you still alive, and here even? You learn a lot when you are in the realm of the death gods, my friend. Minato growled, raising a hand to press it on the third's shoulder. Now, tell me old friend. He growled, tightening his grip. Why oh why has this village become a laughingstock of its former self? He asked. You don't understand. Sarutobi winced, the pressure becoming hard to withstand. Everything we planned on doing for the village after the sealing was done in by the council. He tried to explain. They made it so I couldn't do anything before I even became the Hokage again. So you're telling me that no matter what you could have tried, you were unable to save the ideals of this village with your will of fire? Minato growled, suddenly releasing his former sensei. I take it the village reacted the same way that Kushina thought, huh? He asked, looking at a pen on the now neglected desk. So what was the council doing about this? He asked. Or did they even care that he was my son? He growled, slamming his hand onto the desk, startling the old Hokage. And you can't even seem to explain to me how my son has spent most of his life either being beaten to near death or being hungry. They had their words, my old friend. The Hokage growled, picking up his discarded pipe. Reaching down to a locked drawer in his desk, he pulled out a rather large folder. This is your son's folder. Medical and otherwise. He explained, looking at his friend's face as he handled the folder. I could only do so much after you left for your son, Minato-san. Minato sat down in a side chair as he began looking at the many pages. Looking into the subfolders, he could only curse. Chapter 3. Minato was looking through his son's folders, growing more and more angry and irritated. He looked up at his former sensei and could only hold back his anger so much, just enough to allow him to think even somewhat clearly. Just as he was about to lay into Sarutobi, he felt something that he was only happier to feel. The feel of one of his three-pronged kunai being thrown with chakra. Which could only mean one thing. Kushina had found their son prematurely. He vanished without a word, surprising Sarutobi with the speed he transported. The third Hokage could only look at the vapors in the air before turning toward the windows to look out at the village he was sworn to protect. Suddenly looking toward the door, he called for one of his Anbu. The Anbu that came to him surprised him however. Dragon. He grunted, watching the tall female Anbu walk toward him. The Anbu wore a typical Anbu uniform, with the slate gray pants, multiple holsters for kunai and shuriken, armored vest with gauntlets that held auto-ejectors for her own unique throwing knives and greaves that held seals that Sarutobi had never seen her activate. He was always impressed when he looked at the Anbu's personal appearance. Black hair that was made into 4 ponytails at the back of her head, with hair beads at the side of her face that he knew held smaller knives or senbon needles. You asked for Anbu Hokage-sama. She sighed, looking around the office. So somebody was in here Hokage-sama. She growled. Where were Raven and Raccoon? Don't worry about it, Dragon. Sarutobi groaned, knowing that the Anbu in front of him was one of his high-level security Anbu. She was always asking what happened, especially with things concerning him and a certain young blonde who she felt special emotions towards. I need you to summon the council for an emergency meeting. I just found something that is going to make them flip. He ordered, watching the Anbu disappear. 15 minutes earlier. Kushina was looking at a newly built bridge near the land of waves. She hadn't realized that there was even a bridge in wave. Quickly looking around the bridge, she saw that there had been a big battle around the bridge. Seeing numerous trees broken in half, she saw that there was blood all over the place, some of that blood smelled familiar. Standing over the broken trees, she saw that there were 2 impact areas, along with another smell that she was quite familiar with. The smell of distilled arousal. She began slowly molding chakra into her nose, trying to enhance the smell of blood to follow. The technique quickly brought the smell leading away from the bridge towards somewhere that she had to smack herself for. Tizuna's house. Taking off into the trees again, she quickly ran to her and her husband's old friend's house, hoping to find out what happened. As she reached the smell of the strongest blood, she saw 4 people walking slowly. 2 females that almost looked exactly alike. Probably a bunshin. She thought, looking to the other 2. The smaller of the two was a young man with blonde hair dressed in a disgustingly orange jumpsuit. She could feel something off about the jumpsuit however, as if there was some kind of seal in it. The other man however, was someone she could easily identify. Zabuza Mimichi, the demon of the mist, hobbling on his sword in one of the female forms. She couldn't figure out how the blood smelt so familiar. She knew the scent of Zabuza and his daughter Haku by heart. But the blood she was smelling was not either of the two, so whoever the female was, she was not Haku, and the blonde made her remember when she had first met Minato. The crazy blonde spiked hair made her almost homesick for her husband. Quickly taking out the triple-pronged kunai, Kushina quickly jumped in front of the four, throwing the kunai to the ground. The female pair quickly took up defense positions of the two men, senbon needles at the ready. "Stay away from Naruto-sama." They yelled, making ready for whatever the new intruder was doing. Taking a deep breath, she could only hope that Minato would hurry up. She wasn't a good talker. "Oh, would you stop?" Kushina growled. "I don't know who you are, but I wanna know who the hell that little blonde is and why his blood smells so damn familiar." She growled, unsheathing her sword, its bladed surface glimmering in the faint light as it ran from the curved tip to the slightly curved hilt. Think Sakam's long sword from the movie Wrath of the Ninja. "Give me the information and you won't get any more unnoticeable," she said, her nose too clouded by the smell to understand what the girls had said, even if it was in unison. Naruto had been limping as he and Zabuza were being led to Tezuna's house, away from the bridge. He had also been talking to Zabuza about just about everything, learning things about the man's life. He had been informed that Haku had been in fact his own daughter, even though he had trained her to be nothing but a tool. He had actually slapped the missing nin upside the head until he had apologized to his daughter with an aching migraine. And just as he was about to talk to Kyuubi about what the damn demon had done to Haku's mind, who he was really worried about her. Since he had not heard anything from the girl really besides calling him Naruto-sama and telling him that he was sorry for all the trouble that they had caused, someone jumped out of the trees behind them and proceeded to throw some kind of makeshift kunai into the ground in front of them. Zabuza on the other hand was only able to growl at the new arrival as Haku and her bunshin jumped in front of them to protect them. He tried to raise his sword to fight, but he almost fell over again. He quickly sat to lean back onto the blade. Whatever was going on, he hoped the kids was gonna be able to fight off the enemy shinobi. Then he heard her speak, and it made him remember someone that he thought he would never hear again. "Red." He grunted, levering himself forward. "What the hell are you even doing here? I thought you were dead." He growled in pain. Haku took a small moment to look at her Ursat's father and friend. "You know this woman, Zabuza-sama?" she asked, the way she said the name resembling severe aggravation at him, or at least at the situation, as Zabuza was only hoping for. "She was a major sword user in the Leaf." Zabuza explained. "She was supposed to be married to some powerful shinobi and wave or some shit," he said, giving the latecomer a frown. Just as he was about to talk to the woman in front of him, two things happened. A bright yellow flash appeared and fell upon someone with yellow or light orange hair standing before them. The new arrival in front of them wore a black cloak with silver claws on each of the arms near the cuffs. "Kushina, where is he?" the new blonde asked, looking between the two parties. Taking a quick second look at the other party. He hadn't even noticed the blonde at the end of the party. "Zabuza is that you little pissant." The man smiled happily, walking over to the injured man. "It's been what, 13 years?" he asked, placing a hand on the now only single woman in front of the two boys. "Don't worry little one. I won't hurt your dad," he said, smiling. "Haku right. My how you have grown, what with the last time I saw you being when you were sucking on your mama's breast haha," he said with an ever-growing smile, causing Haku to blush and gasp as she quickly looked around for something. "Who messed you up anyways you old codger?" he asked, standing in front of the taller man. "Must have been Anbu or something right?" "No." Zabuza groaned, leaning more onto his sword while trying not to laugh. He raised an arm partly towards Naruto, whom Minato hadn't noticed yet. "He makes me hate clone techniques," he growled. "Hey, I said it wasn't anything fucking personal, shark face." A loud voice growled out. "I was only doing my goddamn fucking job." The voice screamed. "God, that is so fucking familiar, eh love?" Minato heard Kushina say from behind him. "Makes me remember when we first met." "Yes it does," Minato said with a blush. "Now where is the one who said it?" he asked. Zabuza could only laugh with a groan as he looked at Minato and then towards where Naruto had hidden in the trees. "Hey brat, why don't you come out here, someone you should meet is here," he replied, motioning for someone in the trees to come out. Minato could only smile. "I know what you're doing kid and you shouldn't try it at the moment. I know my wife has already seen you. Since she brought me here with my Haration. So come on out. Something we need to talk about," he advised, scratching behind his head. "And trust me, I am not your enemy. In no form of the word." Watching the tree line, everyone was looking out for any kind of movement. Seeing none, Minato quickly ran through some hand seals and let out a small burst of a breathe. Suddenly a large fireball erupted in the sky, illuminating the trees around them. They still couldn't find any kind of movement in the trees. "Where is that blasted brat?" Zabuza asked, looking around frantically. Turning to his daughter, he saw that she had her eyes closed and was sniffing around. "What do you got, Haku?" he asked. "Zabuza-sama, I can't smell anything other than gunpowder," she said, slowly turning to face towards the way they came. "It's almost as if he somehow was able to use a shunshin technique or something," she explained, focusing her chakra into her ears and nose, trying to find out where her new master had gone. "I hear some splashing, but that is all," she said, "and that is rather far off. I can feel some kind of chakra, but that is it," she sighed. "Nothing that could explain where my master has gone." "Well, I think we should have someone go look for the boy at that bridge," Kushina piped in, now standing at Minato's side, sliding her rather long katana back into its sheath. "What are you waiting for, girl? Go find him," she ordered. "Me and my husband need to talk to Zabuza anyways," she replied, stopping Haku from saying anything as she sent her clone away. Haku could only turn around and look at Zabuza before she turned toward the bridge. "Be careful, Haku," Zabuza groaned, looking around at the other two. "Bring that brat back here and then maybe we can leave," he said. Just as she left the group, she heard a smack like someone was smacked upside the head. She placed no bearing on it and left the group, slowly picking herself up into a dead run the distance to the bridge. Naruto had tried a technique that he had only learned about in that damn forbidden scroll. The Shunshin no Jutsu was something that almost every Chunin knew, and Naruto was determined to do it. He had it to the point where he was able to do everything but the actual teleportation. Every time he had tried to do it before, he ended up in other areas than when he was trying. Now on the few occasions that he hadn't needed healing from Kyuubi, he ended up being in several of the village's water towers. That had been hilarious, especially when people had found him in there and tried to kill him. Good thing he had already no Kamiri and was able to use it. But now, for some odd reason, he had been in front of someone who vaguely looked like the fourth Hokage and his wife Kushina. Even Zabuza had said that she looked familiar to the woman he once knew. Naruto had been standing there 1 minute and then he immediately grown scared and really did a Shunshin no Jutsu without any difficulty and ended up right where he had wanted to end up. He was now really glad that Kyuubi had pretty much started teaching him things when he was young. Looking once again around the bridge, he saw that nobody was there, presumably nobody would be able to find him for a while. Looking down, he saw that the scroll and the kunai weapon he had thought he had lost were both on top of the bridge in a boulder's ruins. Picking the two items up, he quickly put them away before turning around. Feeling something in the air, Naruto took a long sniff of the surrounding area. Smiling lightly as he scratched the back of his head, he could only chuckle lightly as he turned around to where he came from. "You can come out now, Haku-chan," he said, his eyes drooping to the ground as he saw the girl that he was just getting to know as she walked from the forest. "How did you know it was me, Naruto-sama?" she asked, picking her way through the bramble of the forest, looking as sexy as she did. "Well, I felt all that new chakra that resounded after we had our fight," he began, watching her blush even though he knew he must have been blushing as well. "And when I took a sniff of the air, I smelled something that I will always associate with you, Haku-chan. Ice and lilacs," he explained, resting a hand on her shoulder. "Why did you leave, Naruto?" she asked, turning now to drape herself over him, her tattered clothing making her flesh almost rip out into the open. Naruto could feel Haku's new body against his hand having fallen away from the end of her shoulder as she had moved to him. Looking into her eyes, he saw that she was near crying. "I don't want anyone to get into trouble because of me," he began. "The fourth Hokage sealed the Kyuubi into me, Haku. And if he recognizes my chakra, I am almost assured to be killed," he explained. "My parents did something to make the fourth hate them enough to have the Kyuubi sealed inside me when I was born. My parents died in the attack, thankfully." "Why are you thankful for that?" she growled, hauling him to fully look at her. "Because they didn't have to deal with their son being treated like a criminal who was beaten, starved, maimed and almost killed several times in his life. They didn't have to suffer for it," he yelled, grabbing her shoulders and giving her a firm shake. Looking down at her hands, he saw that in the shake, both of her breasts had almost fallen out of the shattered confines of her shirt and vest. Looking away with a blush, Naruto could only hope that she didn't see it. Just as Naruto was about to turn away and leave somewhere else, Haku grabbed him in a grip that made him look at her more. When she knew she had his attention, she lowered her gaze. "Everything is going to be okay, Naruto-sama," she began, hugging his body to hers. "And surprisingly, it's all because of you." She blushed. When she looked up at him again, she saw that he was once again looking deeply and thought just looking at her. "I don't feel that." Naruto groaned, trying to look away, but found himself unable to. "What are you doing, you stupid furball?" he thought, struggling with his tenant now. You should be looking. The fox replied. You can't be stupid enough to not realize that the girl is now happy that you are looking at her. She wants you wacko kid, the fox growled, drawing Naruto's gaze to Haku's gorgeous and now blushing face. Okay furball, you're right. I can smell her excitement. Naruto sighed to himself before reaching up to touch Haku's face. With only a moment of hesitation, Naruto brought her face to look him in the face again. Here goes nothing. He thought, swooping down on her surprised face as he brought her lips and his together in a small yet exotic kiss. Haku only hesitated for a few seconds before she jumped into the kiss, making it hotter than Naruto intended. Naruto-sama is kissing me. She shouted to herself as she smiled into the mouth of the man she loved. Okay kid, the demon fox smiled in the sealed cage. Now do you believe me? Shut up, you damn fox-headed pervert. Naruto growled, rubbing Haku's shoulders as he kissed her, hoping she was enjoying the kiss as much as he was. Okay, now that we both know that he isn't coming back for a minute or two, Minato sighed, hoping that he was right about this kind of talk as he looked at Zabuza. Do you know what the kid's name is, my old friend? He only said his name was Naruto. Zabuza explained, causing Kushina to gasp as he looked behind the older blonde to the redhead. Naruto? Minato asked, looking back at his wife, then back to his friend. You're sure? He asked questionably as he rubbed his head in thought. Minato, is there some reason you're here? Zabuza asked, his eyes darting from the two to where Haku had disappeared to. I know that rumors are rumors, but I thought you were dead. And in the Shinigami's world and everything. I was. The blonde sighed, pointing to sky. Heaven is really cool and all. He smiled. But I missed the hell out of this place. He laughed outright, only to receive a loud slap upside the head from Kushina, her purple hair swishing back and forth. You fucking baka. She growled, taking another sideways glare around her. Zabuza, we came back mainly because of two reasons. She started. Kushina? Minato asked, hoping to dissuade her from speaking much further. Shut it. She growled, looking back to Zabuza again. One is a reason for somewhere else to talk about. The other is that we want our fucking son. Wait a sec, Zabuza began, trying futilely to stand up straight only to fall more onto his sword, causing him to cry out in pain. That kid must have done a number on your ass, my friend. Minato laughed, walking over and picking his friend up. You know, I'm surprised that you're not dead already from blood loss. He sighed, hoisting him up on his shoulder and handing the cleaver over to Kushina. Let's go see what the holdup is, shall we? He asked, turning away from Kushina as she started following, a smirk on her face, before she turned away from them with a smirk and started moving into the tree line. Izuna was now groaning on the couch once again. Kakashi was irritated to say the least from hearing it for the last hour or so. Everything that the old man had told them didn't feel right. He hadn't seen or heard from Naruto ever since the beginning of the morning when he had sent him off to guard Izuna. He was even more pissed off that the demon brat had sent a shadow clone here to guard the man, even though he was supposed to be here with the old man guarding him. He wasn't even here in the first place. He had gone missing and it made Kakashi more than mad. Turning around to look into the room where he had placed the unconscious Uchiha, Kakashi stifled an angry growl as he looked across the room at a crying and wailing little pink blob that was known as Sakura. She had been crying ever since they had showed up to the house and put Sasuke to rest in the futon. When Kakashi had last looked, he had seen that the Uchiha had caused himself to have really bad tearing and bleeding from the wound in his hip. He surmised even with the first aid kit that he had always brought with him that the Uchiha needed to get back to Konoha or else he would be in big trouble. Unfortunately, Kakashi was not willing to leave until he was ready and healed so he could take care of that damn missing Ninjabusa. He wanted to kill that man even more than he wanted to kill Naruto. He was becoming irate that he couldn't have anything go his way lately. Not to mention he was bored stiff because during that first fight with the man and his little shit bitch, he had ended up accidentally destroying his own favorite orange book. Kakashi? Said the sweet-sounding voice of Tsunami as she looked around slightly. Yes. He replied, trying to sound as sweet-sounding as he could with everything going on. What's up, Tsunami? Well, Naruto has been gone ever since he came back this morning to drop off his squad of clones for protection. She began. And I think that my father is getting worried about him. At least that is what he was saying a few minutes ago. Wait a minute, Tazuna has been able to speak, Kakashi began. And Naruto was here earlier? I thought he had only came in as a clone. Nope. He was here talking to Tazuna for about a good hour, asking about all kinds of things. She smiled. He gave my father some kind of rubbed-down version of a plant around here and said that it would make him feel better and that he would be leaving a few shadow clones around the area. Said something about going to the bridge just in case, what with the men being threatened for helping my father. Kakashi was now officially enraged. Looking back to his students, or at least the two that he had with him, he pulled a kunai out of his pouch. Take the Sakura. He ordered, causing her to look up with tears in her eyes. If someone approaches, kill them to protect the clients and Sasuke. Hi. Was all Sakura could sob as she went to the side of the door, giving the Uchiha a kiss on his cheek as she passed. Izuna watched Kakashi as he walked out of the house. So you're gonna go do something finally? He asked to himself, moving under his blanket slightly, trying to get comfortable. The rub that Naruto had given him was officially helping him, even with his old age not helping in the slightest. Tsunami? He called out hoarsely, raising his hand out for her. His daughter was not to disappoint as she was immediately by his side. Yes, father. I need you to get everything ready. I have a feeling in my gut saying that we are going to be having more company soon. He replied, hoping his daughter would be up for the task he set before her. Just don't let her know what is going on. I keep feeling that someone is going to have problems. After you get one room ready, go outside and have one of the Naruto clones tell the original that Kakashi is pissed for some reason and that he should be careful. Hi. Kyuubi was really enjoying its day. It had begun to be something so stupid and annoying, and now look what had happened. The kid now had what could only be described at first as a love slave, but the boy was too stubborn and the kid was playing it down by pure willpower. The girl was still madly in love with him and all the majority feelings for something greater. But even the nine-tailed demon could not expect perfection from humans. The demon had watched the boy for most of its life. And now, looking at the boy through his mind, he could see that something was going to happen with this girl and the demon couldn't be happier. Good my boy. It thought, reaching into itself with its chakra. The flames that had pretty much consumed the Kitsune demon for most of its life were now diminishing, seeming to shrink into the demon's body. Soon you'll see the Trumi. It thought as the final flames shrunk to its utmost. Kakashi was now running at top speed towards the bridge. He knew something was going wrong when Tsunami was talking about the boy. He knew that Naruto's clones had pretty much disappeared from view and he was mindlessly thinking something may have gone wrong at the bridge or in the case of the council's decisions, a thing that gone right with the boy. Everything had gone wrong with this mission. The council's Uchiha survivor needed medical attention because he got careless. He suddenly felt something pull at him, just as he knew he should have already made it to the bridge. Looking around, he couldn't see anything amiss, so he quickly brought his hand up to uncover his Sharingan. He immediately felt something hit him in the back of his neck, knocking him off the bigger branch, causing him to hit several tree branches on the way down. The now bleeding and bruised Jounin tried to find something that could have attacked him. Just as he was about to pass out, he saw someone now looking down at him, an evil-looking smile on their face. But before he could see who they were, he fell unconscious. The last thing he heard before he passed out was a very familiar giggle. Kushina looked at her former comrade as he passed out. She had remembered who the man was simply because of the headband and the eye he possessed. She quickly tied him up and pushed him in between pieces of trees that separated. She quickly ran to the bridge, keeping her new genjutsu up as she left. I hope this is our son, Minato. She said to herself. Otherwise me and you are gonna have problems. She growled. Naruto looked up from kissing Haku senseless at the sound of footsteps coming closer. Turning around quickly, a kunai was immediately sent in the direction of the noise, only for it to be deflected. I know that you have reasons to defend yourself and that girl. Minato began as he walked from the tree line and bending to pick up the kunai. But come on. I would have thought that you would at least tried something more in line for defensive jutsu or something. He shouted. Well Yondaime-sama, if that's the case don't take another step. Naruto growled, holding Haku's body behind his as he tried to defend her over himself. Gesturing towards the ground he couldn't help standing up slightly straighter as he saw Zabuza's leaning form again. Or at least the fact that he could hear the former demon whining from remembered pain as he absently remembered all of Naruto's clone traps. His fun was ended however when Minato took more than one step forward. 1 second the older blonde was there, the next he was being smothered by a pair of naked breasts that belonged to a hinged clone as it popped out of the ground. He saw the man blush before the clone smiled at him and gave him a kiss right before it exploded, knocking Zabuza into a nearby tree with a thud. Naruto smacked himself in the head as he tried to find the former Hokage. Thanks kid. He heard behind him causing him to yelp as he was turned around only to see the Yondaime holding Haku beside him as she looked about ready to faint. If you hadn't said anything I wouldn't have been able to do anything to really stop myself from getting hurt. He smiled, ruffling Naruto's hair slightly causing Naruto to try and bat away the man's hand. And it's a good thing Kushina couldn't be here to see that attack, no matter how good it was. Distracting me with it while it could blow up in my face. He smiled. She would have literally tried to kill you for that perverted attack. He laughed out loud. Oh, Haku, could you go and check on your old man? I couldn't grab him fast enough to get away. He explained as he patted the girl on her shoulder as he put his other one on Naruto's shoulder. Hey, we need to talk kiddo. He said, trying to draw the kid away. Looking back at Haku just as she was about to turn around to look at him again, Naruto turned to the man. Only to the end of the bridge, Yandame-sama. He groaned, removing his hand from his head and walking to the other side. Sarutobi was now looking around the surrounding council room filled with the Konoha council members, both clan heads and the civilian council. He idly looked to his side to see the best of his Anbu, Dragon and Ferret, looking to both of the entrances. "Be alert, Dragon." The Hokage muttered, looking at Danzo and his former teammates. "This is gonna drive people nuts." He growled. "What is the meaning of this, Hokage-sama?" Hamaru growled, not liking the fact that they had all been called in on an emergency meeting. "Do you even know what time it is?" He shouted, smashing his hands onto the tables. Hana and her mother Tsume and Yuzuka were sitting down, or rather Tsume was and her daughter was standing behind her. "Shut up, Hamaru. I don't care how all the members of this council work, but guess what?" Tsume began. "But if the Hokage demands a meeting of the council, they are supposed to wake their lazy asses up and get their asses here." She growled, her hand going to rest on her and her daughter's companions. "Hell, even Shikaku isn't complaining, and he's the laziest of the shinobi," she commented, looking across the room to the man in question as he shot a large glare at her. Filler intent immediately caused them all to shut up and cower in front of the Hokage, except for Danzo who wasn't even paying attention. "This better be fucking good, old man," he thought. "Shut up, all of you." The old man growled, looking everyone down. Taking a step forward, he saw that Danzo and the dumbass twins Hamaru and his little bitch Kaharu were now quiet and seemed irritated. "This is important shit, you stupid old fuckers." "Hold your mouth, Hokage-sama." Hamaru growled, standing up in his seat. "You can be removed and you know it." "Go ahead and remove me, Hamaru." Sarutobi growled, his anger once again running him. "But beware, your worst nightmare," he began to everyone's shock. "I am sure you remember who that is. After all, worst nightmares tend to stick with you." "I don't know what you're talking about, Hokage-sama." Danzo growled, looking at Hamaru and Kahara sternly. Taking a deep breath, Sarutobi slowly released it. "Oh Danzo, you disappoint me." He smirked. "You don't remember the village's favorite Hokage." He groaned, slightly shaking his head back and forth. Looking back to the advisors, Sarutobi gave what most have given out as a fox-like grin. "The Yandame is back, members of this council," he informed, watching the shinobi council now gasp. "And he is not happy about the choices of this council. Especially concerning his legacy." He growled, turning around he looked at the door and proceeded to walk briskly out of the council chambers. He turned around suddenly, giving the council a glare. "I want all members of the shinobi council before me in my office in 15 minutes. The shinobi council immediately shunted it away after only a second after the order, leaving Danzo, Hamaru and Kaharu sitting in their seats. Danzo immediately turned to the two. "If that man is back," he began, a rude Anbu showing up behind him as he slowly stood up. "I don't know about you, but I would believe that our plans would be severely screwed," he yelled. "I know for a fact that the Yandame's not alive." "He couldn't be." Kaharu growled, taking a piece of paper from a small pile. "His body was never recovered after the sealing." "That doesn't mean anything about him being really dead, Kaharu." Hamaru began, taking a slow look around the chamber. "Danzo, I would like it if you could do me a few small favors," he asked as he looked at the Anbu behind the Warhawk. "What is it?" the man asked, giving his Anbu a nod. "I need 2 people brought to me. Zenobia Vinskilya and Enobia Haruna." Hamaru sighed. "Vinskilya is on the outskirts of the southern wall," he explained. "I think I can do that. Then there is the other matter." Kaharu began as she lay back in her chair slightly. "If the Yandame is indeed still alive, then there is the matter of the demon brat that needs to be taken into account. Uzumaki Naruto is a nobody, honorable Kaharu." The Anbu behind Danzo growled. "My men are already on the ideal to kill the brat when he reaches the walls of the village again." "You speak too much, Viper." Danzo growled. "Either way." Kaharu growled, interrupting the two. "If the Yandame is indeed alive, he and the demon brat needs to die quickly before the other clans find out. The old man must be going senile in his old age." Hamaru growled, standing up to walk out of the room. What the three barely understood was the paper bombs attached all over the room. With a quick flick of his finger, the dragon-masked Anbu sent a massive amount of chakra through the papers, effectively causing the entire council room to explode in a large purple flame, the sound of said explosion being muffled by the soundproof seal tags, effectively destroying everything inside the room. "I think I used too much." Dragon smiled behind his toothy mask, looking at his wolf-masked companion. "They were speaking treason against the 4th Hokage, so they deserved it in my own opinion." The younger man growled. "Now Itachi can come back to us." "Yeah, but I don't think that he will. At least not willingly." Dragon sighed. "Let's go get Danzo's fucking head and the heads of those 2 morons." He growled, looking at the Bowden double doors. Inside the doors, after clearing away some of the wreckage from the large desks, Dragon and Wolf smiled at the destruction. 3 bodies littered the floor, with another imprinted into the back desk. The 3 bodies were easily Danzo, Hamaru and Kaharu, the latter being thrown a good distance to land impaled on one of the Konoha's village flags. Taking out a kunai, Wolf moved to remove the 2 heads of Danzo and the only masked corpse's head, while Dragon took Hamaru's and Kaharu's. Dragon, we need to get these heads to the Hokage and explain why he needs to set up a new civilian council. The man growled, gazing at the ruined bandages over the shoulder of the now dead Danzo. I'm on it. Dragon growled, throwing Kaharu's and Hamaru's heads into a rather large sack, proceeding to tread his way out of the room, kicking the door further open to exit. Hurry up, Wolf. Let's go. The small cat stood on a rock outside of the tower, its tail twitching as it looked at Wolf and Dragon's actions. The cat quickly leapt to the grassy floor into the arms of her summoner. The girl picked up the summons, listening to the telepathic creature's explanation of what happened. So, they were trying to kill the little one. She growled, pulling off her Anbu mask. Thanks, Nukiana. She smiled, ruffling her hands through her purple hair. Sorry Danzo. You tried to get me to kill Naruto, but you forgot to think that he was one of my friends. She thought, fingering a kunai as she turned to walk away, only to be stopped from moving by the appearance of another Anbu. What is it, Parrot? She asked. The man in front of her looked as if he would say something, but looked at her, then at the much higher Hokage office. With a heavy sigh and shake of her head, she quickly shunted it away to the Hokage's office. Parrot on the other hand, could only sigh as he walked away from the Hokage tower. He didn't have any missions to do, which made him more than angry. As he walked he could only look at the Hokage monument. Can't believe I'm saying this, but I wish Naruto was back. He began. At least chasing him was a C-rank mission. He smiled, walking past Ichiruka's raiment stand. He was also just someone to talk to. He thought, his mind going to the times he and Naruto had talked. Chapter 4. Naruto was only slightly aggravated as he looked back from walking a few feet as Haku seemed to disappear over to Zabuza's side to heal him. Goddamn blonde idiot. He growled to himself with a chuckle. Taking me away from Haku when I just got the courage to kiss her on my fucking own. He smiled as he looked back at what he had done. Turning back to the blonde, he rubbed his left temple idly as they came to a stop resting at the side of the bridge. Now you probably have questions, especially with me being here and Kushina also being here since you were probably told that we were dead. Minato sighed, rubbing his left arm. Among other things. He muttered softly. Yeah, like why I have a 9-tailed furball in my fucking navel, or how about the question of what my dad fucking did to you to deserve his death and that damn stupid demon ceiling. Naruto glared, barely noticing that Kushina was now on his left, taking the minute to look up, his eyes met hers ever so briefly, causing Naruto to shudder a little bit. I know you must hate me too, Kushina-san. He whispered. Kushina looked from him to Minato. Why would we hate you? Because of me, you both died to bring an end to the Kyuubi. Naruto began. If my daddy began, only to be interrupted when both Minato and Kushina slapped him upside the head. Shut up, Naruto. Kushina began, walking in front of him. Your father for one thing, did nothing to piss us off, she began. Maybe me, but not Minato here. She growled at the older blonde. But the reason you were sealed with the Kyuubi was because no other person could be trusted with the safety of the village. When Kyuubi attacked, my most trusted shinobi and I tried to defeat it to at the very least fend it off. Minato began, his eyes downcast. The only one that could have done it was your family's bloodline. And that was because of the sheer fact that your family holds the blood of the first Hokage, or rather, the power to break and hold demons. He explained, turning away from Naruto to stare into the river. Naruto, did Sarutobi ever explain to you about your father and mother? Kushina asked, trying not to tear up as she stared at her son, which she was steadily failing. She knew that she was looking at him longingly like a mother looked at her long-lost son, which was exactly the case in this matter. No, Naruto began, looking down at his sandals. I could only look so far into it, but I had assumed that my father and mother had made the Hokage matter something. He sighed. Well, I know one thing. Kushina began with a sad smile. Happy birthday, Naruto Uzumaki. She laughed as Naruto seemed to gag on the statement. I would have assumed that you heard that before, kiddo. She frowned, holding the kid up as he nearly fell backward. Not in a long time, from what his files state. Minato chipped in, pulling away from the edge of the bridge, reaching behind him. But that is gonna change soon, kiddo. He smiled, visibly refraining from calling Naruto son, at least, not yet anyways. Bringing out from his hip bag, he handed the younger blonde a rather long bundle wrapped in what looked like dark leather. Go ahead, open it. He smiled. Naruto slowly took the bundle, examining it for explosive tags. Finding none, he carefully unwrapped the leather from it, revealing a long sheathed sword. It's named after something not found much anymore, Minato began. Dragon fangs. Naruto replied, cutting him off as he examined the sheath as he saw the design seeming to appear out of it. The base color of the item was black, with a gold-colored tip at the end and a pair of silver dragons flying around the scabbard. The hilt of the item seemed to resemble a dragon in flight, curling around the red and black handle of the item. Pulling on the handle, revealed to him a magnificent pair of blades facing the same direction. Think Kaji's blade from Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, I think it's called Sauja. Taking it completely out of the scabbard, Naruto was further shocked to see the dragons seem to spawn more along the scabbard. Staring at both blades respectfully, he saw that each blade held a dragon design reaching toward the tip of the sword. Beautiful, yet deadly. You have no idea how that matters, Naruto. Minato said with a smile. You actually drew the sword, Kushina stuttered, looking at him in pleased awe. Just as Naruto was about to say something further, they heard a loud cracking sound. Looking at the scabbard, the three shinobi could only stare shocked at what had happened. Now, instead of a 24-inch long scabbard, now appeared a 10-inch long scabbard with a bizarre seal at the top. Showing the scabbard to Minato, Naruto growled as the older blonde looked over the seal. What's wrong with it? He growled. It's a container seal. Sheathe the sword, Naruto. Minato explained, smacking the boy upside the head as he tried to argue with him. Naruto quickly sheathed the blades, expecting it to come up short, not for it to actually take the blade and make it look like it was only the size of a dagger. Holy cow. Naruto exclaimed. Naruto continued to sit there as Minato and Kushina explained that the sword was a legendary sword made in the Shinigami world that was made from a spirit dragon's fangs and scales. And that the blade was not only able to channel chakra into it, but was said to be only able to be drawn by a chosen few, and that the scabbard shortening itself was something that they didn't even know about. And there is something that you need to know, Naruto. But I want you to have this last present before you are told this. Because this is incredibly important. Minato began, standing in front of him again. Can I have your word that you will hear me out before any action is taken? That you will listen to me? He asked, hoping he knew enough about his son from his files. Okay, give me everything that you can. The boy frowned, his temper receding as he stared at the sword in his hand. Taking off his trench coat, Minato made a few hand seals. Take off that disgusting orange jacket, Naruto. Kushina interrupted. And stand in the middle of the bridge. This is gonna be big. She explained. Implying if only to see what was going on, Naruto quickly took off his jacket, only to have it taken from the bridge and examined by Kushina as he moved to stand in the middle of the bridge as requested. Come out. Minato growled, his voice slightly disturbing to Naruto as he stood there staring at Minato, who had stopped the hand seals. The black tattoo-like drawing appeared to running down the older blonde's arms, making his face twitch and contort, while every muscle that was being touched constricted. Even as the drawing made its way down his arm to his hand, Naruto saw that Minato did not move any part of his body. Just as the design hit the man's fingers, drops of black ink dropped onto the bridge's surface, then moving to go behind Naruto. What the hell? Naruto asked, looking around him. Ah, honey, she's shy. Kushina exclaimed, her voice slightly edgy as she seemed to look at both Naruto's jacket and what was going on with Minato and him. Can I give him my gift now? She asked. Not yet, I'm still doing this. Minato grunted. Sorry, Naruto. But if you could look at me for a minute, everything will be explained. Minato sighed, standing slightly more straighter. Just as Minato told him this, however, Naruto was greeted with the feeling of another body pressing into him. Thinking it was Haku, Naruto sighed happily as he leaned into her. But as he reached back to touch her clothed shoulder, he felt nothing in between his fingers and naked flesh, and as he felt a little more, he swore he heard a little moan coming out of someone slightly taller than him. With a shocked and worried face, Naruto slowly took a step forward and turned around, only to come across a very beautiful woman, naked, with flowing red and silver hair and flawless skin, in front of him, demurely holding her hands up to her chest, which absolutely overflowed them, but hid her nipples. Naruto was sure that even in his embarrassed state, that if she was around other people, other than him, she would certainly cause major nosebleeds, with those C-cup breasts and the ass that was hinted at. Naruto Uzumaki, I would like to introduce you to Chivalgiridanja. Someone that we are greatly close to in the Shinigami world. She is what some would call a winged demon companion. Someone that is able to merge with their host, sharing chakra, strength, anything that can be thought of, included mentality. They are only able to bond with someone that they are comfortable with and of the same age. She was able to come with me only for a short way so that she can meet someone to be her desired companion. Minato explained, walking up to stand behind Naruto. Head over there and introduce yourself. I wanted you to be hers, dear boy. Someone able to take care of himself like you have should have no trouble with a four-winged demon who only eats energy to survive. Walking over to her, Naruto numbly looked her blemish-free body up and down. Hello, Chival. He stuttered, reaching out to touch her arm. I'm Naruto. He smiled, feeling better as he felt her warm skin beneath his fingertips. How would you like to be my partner? He asked, looking into some of the prettiest eyes other than Haku's that he had ever seen. Smiling, Naruto looked over across the way to see Haku helping Zabuza get up from the tree. I would love to, Naruto-sama. The demon began, slowly unfurling her hands. Do you like what you see, Naruto-sama? She asked, holding her hands now only to hide her nipples. Receiving a blush and a gasp from him, she smiled, giving him a small peck on the lips before turning to look at Minato. Can I go to sleep now? She asked. Well, you should ask Naruto. You're his now, my demon lady. Kushina smiled, pulling something out of her back satchel. But first there are some things that need discussed first. So don't knock him out yet. And put some clothes on. Shaking his head, Naruto saw a pair of shinobi pants and tank top appear on the luscious Chival's body. First things first, kiddo. Minato stopped him from coming up to her. Chival has another form that you need to be aware of. Chival. He began. Yes. She smiled. Before Naruto's eyes, he saw Chival's eyes change to slitted orange and red eyes. Her skin seemed to change from flawless to looking as if was molded with lava. Black scales seemed to be revealed only by red seams cracking here and there. Looking further behind her, Naruto witnessed what Minato had mentioned. 4 pairs of gorgeous paper-thin wings grew out of her shoulders and back. Talons seemed to extend out of her hands, replacing the gorgeous and soft hands and feet. Feeling something at his foot, he saw that he was being nudged by a smooth-skinned tail, coming from behind her. The tail seemed to be sending shocks along his leg. Wow. What am I gonna do with such a beautiful lady, especially with Haku to take care of? He said with a fox-like grin. A resounding smack on the back of his head seemed to cause him to look at Minato and Kushina. I see you have no problem with her being demon. Kushina said with a resounding growl. But now it is time for me to do something for you. She frowned, tossing him a large scroll. That is a summoning scroll. Passed down through generations in the village of Whirlpool. She explained. Whirlpool. Zabuza grunted, hobbling forward with Haku's help. As soon as she saw that he was stable on the side of the bridge, she ran to Naruto's side to cling to him. Whirlpool? Naruto asked. I never heard about it. Where is it? He asked, taking his arms around both of his girls, both Haku and Chival. That's because thanks to someone from long ago, 20 years ago I think Zabuza began. The village of Whirlpool was brutally attacked, literally slaughtering all but a few survivors. He explained, getting a better look at them all. Getting a nod from Kushina, he sighed. And one of those survivors was this lady here. He said, giving Kushina a nice long point with a wavering finger. The forest. Looking around the forest at the moment, he couldn't help but see mussed up areas around the floor of the trees. Turning around slightly, the older man proceeded to do the next best thing. He looked up. What he saw could only make him laugh his ass off, but he knew he had to hold it in. Itachi Kakashi, the copycat ninja, was hanging upside down from a rather large tree branch, his Sharingan eye uncovered and swirling. He couldn't help but see that the man was definitely barely conscious from whatever had attacked him. You're pathetic for a damn shinobi, Kakashi Hatake. You're really pathetic. He growled, taking a swig of his sake and throwing the now empty bottle up at the shinobi. The bottle immediately clunked the man in the forehead, further releasing the Konoha leaf headband, causing it to fall onto the ground. Wake up, you piece of shit. He yelled. Looking up, Tazuna saw that the man was slowly coming to. Good. He thought. Kakashi was slowly coming to, with a major headache combined with the resulting pain from something hitting him in the head. As slowly as he could, he looked around at his present predicament. Okay, I'm upside down, tied up in what seems to be a major really tough ropes that seem to be sapping not just my chakra, but my strength as well. He thought, trying to pull himself out more out of frustration, still nothing happened. Looking down however, he saw that the rope or whatever that was holding him was tied to a large root system. But out of the corner of his eye, he saw a figure walking away drunkenly. Hey! He screamed, watching the figure leave. Help me out here. He screamed, his voice seeming to be absorbed by the darkness. Oh great, now what am I gonna do? He growled, trying to move his hands. Kazuna's house. Sakura groaned to herself as she watched Sasuke through the doorway. She had been watching both Inari and Tsunami for the past couple of hours, wishing that Kakashi would get his one-eyed ass back here. After he had taken off, she had seriously thought about going to find him to kick his fucking perverted ass to show that the council was something to not mess with, what with them telling both him and her to take care of Sasuke. And now, here the Uchiha was, being partially healed from a kunai wound from a training accident. Looking back into the background, she realized that Tazuna wasn't even in the house. Looking to Tsunami, she saw that the woman was sitting down with her son, reading him a story. She growled again, bolting upright as she looked at the doorway. As soon as she looked away, she saw that Sasuke was trying to wake up. Sasuke-kun. She yelled, running up to his side. Taking the boy for any kind of injuries or more bleeding, she was quickly rewarded with a sharp slap to the face by the duck-butt-headed emo. "Leave me alone." He growled, trying to raise himself up, only to be shoved back down by Sakura. "You're hurt," she yelled, knocking him back down to the futon. "Keep your ass on that bed until Kakashi-sensei says otherwise." "But what about Izuna?" he growled. "My father is going to be fine." Tsunami groaned, her hand holding onto Inari's hand, her black hair flitting around signifying a quick arrival. "Yeah." Inari yelped from her side. "Naruto Nisan will protect him." He yelled, quickly erupting in little jumps in his mom's hand. "Grandpa will be fine." "Oh, give me a break, kid." Sasuke growled, still fighting Sakura weakly. "That dope couldn't even defend that old man before. What makes you think that he would be able to do it now of all times?" Inari then did two things that made everyone else gasp at him. He growled at the laying Uchiha before breaking free of his mom, and he did it again as he roared at the older boy before rushing him and what could be suspected as breaking Sasuke's jaw, along with his own hand. Needless to say, Sakura and Tsunami were shocked nonetheless. But looking back at Sasuke, Sakura slapped herself on the forehead again as she saw Sasuke now bleeding again and knocked out against the window wall. "An. I know it's wrong but fuck that funny. Raffle now. Yes, I am a Sasuke Sakura basher, so I apologize." Bridge, 2 hours later. Naruto could only smile at everything that was happening. Two women, even though one of them is a demon he thought lecherously. "I have a summoning contract that I can sign, a pair of new swords, and am getting praise from the Yondaime Hokage himself." He smiled to himself, giving Haku a kiss on her cheek. Turning to Chival, he quickly gave her one as well. His musing was quickly interrupted. Naruto Minato began, wringing his hands idly as he looked from Zabuza to Kushina, then to Naruto again. "There is something else you need to know, other than Kushina being from Whirlpool." He sighed. "Oh, for the love of fucking Pete, Minato, if you don't tell him I will." Kushina yelled, her purple hair flaring slightly, throwing Naruto's orange jacket to the ground. Naruto was once again piqued, or at least his curiosity was. Thinking back to when Naruto had taken off the jacket, Naruto was aware something was off. He felt stronger, or at the very least less weak than he usually was when not fighting or training. "Kushina-san." Naruto interrupted. "Could you please look in my jacket for me? I feel weird." He explained, almost snarling at the jacket now. Kushina quickly picked the jacket. Quickly looking at Minato, obviously taking care awareness to a new level. They both looked at the jacket, both inside and out. But as the both came to the spiral charms on Naruto's jacket's shoulders, they both growled as they yanked it off. "A chakra siphon seal." Minato whispered. "I got that from the old man Hokage for my 6th birthday." Naruto explained, rushing over to the two, not even realizing that he was dragging both Haku and Chival with him. "What's wrong with it?" he asked, his voice almost growling. "That's what, Naruto?" Kushina growled, looking him in the eyes again with that weird look in them. "You're getting a new wardrobe when we get to Konoha," she ordered. "At the Hokage's expense." She smiled a near-feral smile at Minato, who could only hold his hands out in surrender. Naruto gasped next, his eyes bugging out. "I can't, Kushina-san." He groaned, shocking everyone. "I can't accept these things so heartlessly." "Naruto, shut it for 2 seconds, okay?" Minato frowned. "It's your birthday." He began, his eyes overshadowing with some unforeseen pain. "And parents," he began, picking up a pebble from the side. "And parents are supposed to give gifts to their kids, especially their son, who has been given so much pain over the years because of a bad decision." He sighed, waiting for a response from his son. What Naruto stammered, looking at the two of them as they stood there. Now he could see something else. Kushina was now in tears. "You're telling me you're my parents?" he yelled, pulling free from the girls beside him, making Minato and Kushina jump slightly. "Is that it?" he yelled, shaking his hands out at them, his anger passing over him in an instant. He saw all the memories from his past now rushing through him. "You left me, with the Kyuubi and me?" he yelled, rushing Minato in one smooth leap, almost catching the man off balance before slamming a fist into the man's jaw once again, causing him to fall over the edge of the bridge and into the river below. Angrily observing now, Naruto saw Minato slowly surfacing from the river and taking a slow run down river. Making a shadow clone instantly, he pounded after the older blonde with the shadow clone staying behind. "I understand why they did it," he thought sadly. "The damn furball was about to crush the village, but why did they leave me afterward?" He cried, tears running down his face as he ran after his father, his anger and sadness showing now in his eyes. "Why didn't you tell me, damn it, Kyuubi?" he growled, his thoughts ranging from ripping an opening in his dad's ass. "You knew, and you left me to believe that I was alone." Naruto raged, looking into his mindscape, only to find a large valley in the middle of a giant windstorm. No Kyuubi lay in its cage, no Sower. "Where are you, Kyuubi?" he thought to himself, bringing himself out of his mindscape to the situation of chasing his dad. I know you're a damn shadow clone, Kushina began tearfully, looking back to the clone that stood watch around them. Chival had to be told to sit down and wait, even though she was visibly agitated. Haku was continuing her healing of Zabuza, who was once again having his beaten-up sword slung on his back again. But you need to hear this. Then when I dispel you, the information will be related to Naruto, and then he can start calming down. If he doesn't, bad things can happen. She explained through her tears as she sat down, her body feeling heavier than usual. Looking to the clone who was now looking on the verge of tears as he sat down next to her. From the moment he was born, I knew Naruto was meant for greatness. I spent so long trying to get things that would help you in life. But when it all came down to the attack of that damn demon, Minato came to the hospital and watched you come into this world, hoping that someone else was being born as well. The sealing that he was using as a last-ditch effort was only able to be used with a newborn baby. She cried out sadly. But as you can tell, there weren't any newborns other than my dear boy. That is understandable. Zabuza interjected, walking over to stand by them. Newborns have an unstable chakra network. They should be the only ones that won't immediately explode from the internal pressure from the overload of chakra. He explained, patting Naruto's clone on the head lightly, obviously afraid of another exploding clone. And Minato knew that he had no way to do it. So we both took Sarutobi's words about having Naruto treated like a hero and did the sealing. We all had hopes that someone would adopt him and that he would be treated fairly and well protected. She sighed, her hands going to her swords. But apparently Sarutobi lied to us. But the old man helped me so much. The clone cried, his fists clenching at unexplained rage. If it hadn't been for him, I would be dead right now. It said, explaining all the things that the old Hokage had done for him over the years. Zabuza, hand me that puke of a jacket over there for me please. Kushina asked, gesturing to the once again dropped and forgotten jacket. Once she had the jacket in her hands, she showed the jacket to him. Do you see this inseam right here? She asked, showing the clone a finely made seam that seemed to actually blend in with the orange and blue of the jacket. At his nod, Kushina looked up at Zabuza and Haku who gave her nods. Did Sarutobi give you this? She asked the clone. No, the asshole at the clothing store did. He overprices me on everything and the only thing I can afford are damn jumpsuits. The clone growled, sneering at the offensive jacket. Well good I don't have to kill the old fool. Kushina growled. At Naruto's blank expression, Kushina frowned. There are chakra disruption, suppression, and strength sapping seals on the back of this thing. There are very few people who know how to work these seals to fruition. Even a real seal master would have a hard time with these seals. Making them work in correct order is said to be impossible, but somehow it's here. Disruption? What do you mean? The clone asked, his tears giving way to more and more curiosity. Are you telling me someone has been fucking with my chakra all this time? He growled, biting into his lip. I'm afraid so. Zabuza interjected, placing both hands on Naruto's shoulders. Kid, if you remember during our fight, I kept wondering why something was wrong with the way you were fighting. You were using a sword that you never knew how to use, combined with when we first met, you were using plans and strategy that would have worked, but whenever you put it into action, something always went wrong. Zabuza growled. If you wouldn't have been wearing that damn thing you would have killed me. He frowned, but laughed as realization hit him. The kid with the ability to create a mushroom cloud with very little chakra. He laughed. Naruto. Kushina frowned at Zabuza's reaction. You must know, right now she began. Me and your father came back from out of the Shinigami realm just for you son. She cried. We love you. We really do. We never meant to leave you. She cried, grabbing onto the clone and hugging him tightly. Oh I know you do mom. And I know dad does too. I'm just having an issue with abandonment. The boss won't hurt him, much less try to. The clone explained, returning the hug just as tight. As the two enjoyed the moment, they felt two other pairs of arms encircle them, one pair a human woman's arms, the other a pair of demonic strong arms. Before anyone could feel it, the clone seemed to disappear. What the hell? Kushina shrieked, looking around. I thought that was a Kage Bunshin. She stuttered. Kage Bunshin don't just fade like that, they literally go poof she explained. Yeah, we know. Zabuza smiled, his shoulders shaking in silent laughter. Kushina-sama. Chival said, drawing everyone's attention. When am I gonna be able to sleep? She asked, her fingers idly opening and closing. I need to bond with Naruto-sama. She cried out, her tail wrapping around a leg. I know Chival. Soon you'll be able to. Kushina sighed. Already 10 minutes of being with my son again and I'm already tired. She laughed to herself. He is gonna be a handful when he finds out about the craw. She frowned. River. Naruto felt the slow oozing of information coming from the clone he had left behind. Damn it. He growled. Dad. He called out. You can come out now. He growled, standing on the river as he looked around. Mom already explained everything to me. He sighed, watching as Minato appeared at the side of the river, a large duffel on his back. "What's with the bag?" he asked, more and more curiosity was drawing him down. "Clothes." Minato explained, rubbing his sore jaw. "You know, I have had a lot of fights," he began. "But somehow, I have never had someone surprise me, not once, but twice." He grinned at the way Naruto looked at him. "I could never be more proud of you, Naruto." He smiled, now walking beside his son and dropping to his knees. "I put a lot of pressure on you at an early age. I am sorry about that, but I would do that again if it meant safety for the people we have to protect," he said matter-of-factly, hoping his son would understand as he gave him a small hug. "I know why you did it and how much it had to hurt to do it. Not just for yourself but for Mom and everyone else too," Naruto said with a sad smile. "There is something else that I need you to know, son." Minato sighed. "It's about Chival." Okay, that is it for my 4th chapter, people. I thank all my readers who have sent me reviews of the like. If anyone has anything that they would like me to add, please tell me. It would be much appreciated. I also apologize for something. On my last chapter, one said that my harem was going to have Hinata in it. I mistyped on the list and I apologize. Once again, however, the harem will be Femkyubi Femhaku Hana Anko Gurin Yujito Konan and 2 Ox. Chival is already introduced. Will like to know ideas on what kind of affinities anyone would like to see. And I apologize to all those Kakashi and Sakura lovers out there. I feel that those two along with Sasuke are a major hindrance in some stories and feel that they will deserve being bashed a bit. And yes, I will stop the bashing. But I will be doing small jibes every once in a while with them. Chapter 5. River 30 minutes later. Naruto was glaring at Minato as they ran back to the bridge. "You're telling me that I have to bond with Chival for her to survive?" he asked. "Yes." Minato sighed. The man hadn't expected much of an expression from his son. He had hoped that the boy would be all for everything with just the promise of power. But his son had once again proved to him that he was in fact the most surprising ninja in Konoha as he claimed he was. He had just wondered about what would happen after the bonding, as if having a creature crawling over his skin would make much of a difference to him. "And she needs to bond onto my skin unless I need her to come out for any reasons in itself. That is what you're telling me?" he asked. "Naruto, she would also require a source of life energy that you would only be able to give her after a time," Minato explained with a blush. "She is able to share her chakra with whoever she is bonded to. So you must take care of her," he explained, trying to pick up the pace as to get ahead of Naruto before they hit the bridge, only to have Naruto right beside him and even in front of him somewhat. By the time that they had reached the bridge, Naruto was smiling his head off, all the while Minato was actually panting, his breath not seeming to come to him easily. Bridge 5 minutes ago. Haku was looking between Chival and Kushina. She had just heard all that Chival was from Naruto's mom. A demon with sexual life energy needs. She gasped, looking now at Zabuza. "Don't look at me, kiddo." The man frowned. "I know shit about demons other than I am one," he growled. "How the hell should I know what a demon eats?" "You're sure that that is how she is able to survive?" Haku asked, her mind scrambled over the possibilities. "I just spent the last 13 years in the Shinigami realm raising these demons," Kushina explained. "Chival is the last of the litter that I was entrusted with." She smiled sadly. "Nobody would treat her well enough more than my own son," she explained with a grin. "And with Kyuubi sealed in him, Naruto would be able to do a lot more feeding than any normal person or demon," she said with a sneer. "She can survive off of not just Naruto." She frowned. "But would you be able to trust your daughter Zabuza with anything but what you feel is the best?" she asked. "Okay, that makes no sense, Kushina." Zabuza began, looking to Haku and Chival. "You're telling me that whoever this little demon sleeps with, or rather Naruto sleeps with, she can drain sustenance from the sexual fluids in the form of life energy?" he asked, scratching his head dumbfounded. "I am not little." Chival growled, hunching her wings as she began to change back into her human form. "I happen to be the eldest of my sisters and brothers and the only one to achieve 4-winged status." She growled in pride, her chest inflating more and more. "Zabuza, leave her alone." Kushina interrupted, looking at the older man. "Chival," a soft voice grunted, breaking up any kind of argument between the four. "Me and you need to have a talk, sweetness." Haku started as she turned around to see Naruto standing there with his father behind him, panting. "Is everything alright?" she asked, turning fully to run to him. His only response was that of her kissing her breathlessly, making her moan in pleasure. But from behind her, Haku could hear Chival moaning in irritation. "I'll be right back, beautiful. I need to talk to my demon," Naruto explained, giving Haku's stomach a slight tickle before gesturing to the demon to follow him. He swiftly left the group for the woods, Haku's subtle frown hidden by her hair. She was being torn apart from the inside out with her emotions. "You're supposed to be his slave, Haku-san." A voice said in her mind, disturbing her slightly. "You know for a fact he cares about you and yet you think otherwise." The voice growled. "Get a grip on yourself." It warned, causing Haku to shake her head in dismay as she turned to watch Naruto and the demoness walk into the forest. She was about to start after them in fright except for being stopped by several hands on her arms and shoulders. "Let them go." Minato panted. "I told Naruto pretty much what I think Kushina told you. You need to let them talk to each other before he can accept her. He needs to accept her, and soon, damn it. I didn't expect it to take this long to decide everything." He explained, his eyes now downcast. "I love him, he's my son. I need to get things settled back in Konoha. I am leaving everything up to you, Kushina." He frowned, then looking at Zabuza and Haku. "I think we're about to have some issues with lack of shinobi. I think I would love it if we could have you and your daughter to come join us, Zabuza. I can net you a jounin position with a chunin for you, Haku," he said, causing the two missing nin to gasp at him. But before the two could say anything, Minato disappeared into thin air. "I hate it when he does that," Zabuza growled. "I'll just imagine when he does it with cargo." Kushina laughed, looking at a building in the distance. "Now, as for the troubles that I know are gonna happen. Anybody wanna take care of Gato?" she asked, looking to the two. "Yeah, why don't Haku do that?" Zabuza smiled, looking at his daughter's surprised face. "I know you are having a rough time with everything, so go take your frustrations out on him. And don't forget his head," he ordered. "I think that is a good idea." Kushina smiled, taking a wrap out of her pack. Looking around, Kushina had to smile. "You can control water, right?" she asked. "Yes, I'm able to make ice out of it. Is there a problem?" Haku asked, her eyes drifting downward. "Nope." Kushina laughed, handing her the wrap. "I want you to have this. As a sort of welcome into the family," she explained. "What is it?" Haku asked, slowly taking off the wrap to show a sort of handle in the color of icy blue. At the end of the handle was the shape of a griffin's eagle head. Towards the hilt of the handle were what looked a little like a lion's claws, all in the color of blue. "It's an elemental blade. Try dipping it into the water and send a tiny bit of chakra into the blade hilt. It should get some interesting results," Kushina explained. "I got it from one of the wards in the Shinigami world." Taking the handle to the edge of the bridge, Haku quickly jumped over, not even making a splash as she landed. She could distantly hear Zabuza and Kushina talking. Ignoring them for a brief few minutes, Haku dipped the end of the handle into the water. Doing as instructed, Haku drew the item from the water, shocked to see a long blue blade emerging as she did so, its blade the color of bright blue as she gazed at it. Turning around excitedly, she jumped back onto the bridge, revealing the blade to her father and Kushina, much to both of their surprises. "Forest, Chival and Naruto." "Okay, Chival." Naruto began, bracing himself on the trunk of a tree, watching as Chival did the same. "Now I need to know, what do you dream of doing?" he asked, making her look at him questionably. "What do you value?" "I don't really know what I would value in this world," Chival replied, her eyes dimming down. "The only thing that I am truly able to do is survive." "So you have no ambitions?" Naruto asked, gripping his hips, accidentally moving the handle of the dragon fang to his back. "What were your ambitions before?" "To survive and get the same wings as my late mother." She groaned. "My mother was a six-winged demon. She died because she got overconfident." "Okay, who was your father?" "I don't know. He died before my hatching." Chival sighed, a lone tear echoing down her cheek, her thoughts evidently in turmoil. "Haku and you are pretty much the only women in my life. Aside from my friends." She heard him growl. "I don't want her hurt, nor do I want to be alone anymore." He shuddered. "I want to give me and you a chance. Especially if you think that I am stable." He began. "I am nowhere near stable. My chakra control sucks, my ability to talk to anybody about anything is abysmal. All I can do is be the idiot who act like he loves someone when he doesn't." He growled, his own frustrations getting the better of him now. "I can't seem to understand something back home and I need to soon." "What is that, Naruto-kun?" she asked, her curiosity getting the better of her as she walked to stand in front of him, pulling his head up to look at her. "Come on, tell me," she said with a sad grin. "Don't make me call you master." She giggled, sensing something else going on with something that Naruto wasn't telling her. Okay, Naruto sighed. "There are several girls that I can say I can care deeply about. And I don't want to hurt them by telling them that I can't be with them." He explained with a cry. "I keep telling them to go with someone else." He sighed. "Why can't you be with them?" Chival asked, her eyes seeming to bore into his. "Because I'm the demon brat of Konoha." Naruto snarled, looking back the way they came. "I shouldn't even steer my eyes toward a woman thanks to the shit going on back there." Naruto barely finished the statement before he received a rather hard smack on the side of his head, almost knocking him off his feet. What the fuck? He snarled, his eyes ensnaring Chival. I knew it. Chival smiled, her fingers curling into his hair. You have your mother's blood and your father's talent. I'm surprised nobody has ever really brought it up to you. Then again, from what I can understand, there has been a lot of things people who are supposed to support you has left out that they should have told you. She frowned. What are you talking about, Chival? Naruto growled, looking around, hoping to see some kind of thing that wasn't there evidently. This isn't some kind of prank, is it, Chival? He frowned. Nope, no joke. Chival sighed, gripping his shirt tightly. And if I ever see or hear of you beating yourself up other than in training, then me and you are gonna have issues. She ordered. I already know more than I care to know. I love you and I barely know you. I will always support you, never lie to you, and never leave you. Just so long as you be there and do the same for me. She smiled finally as she leaned over to his ear. And those little secrets that you try to keep are always safe with me, my dear master. She whispered. Well, I can't think of any other way than that can be sealed with other than you bonding to me. He blushed, rubbing his arms as if to remove a chill. What does it entail? He asked. Grabbing his head in her hands, Chival smashed her lips to his, making him gasp audibly. She swiftly picked him up in a bear hug, leaving him barely enough room to clutch at her sides as she kissed him thoroughly. After a few minutes, she let him down, giving him a final kiss on the forehead as she smiled. I only bond to your skin and have the form of a tattoo, as your father explained. From there I have an almost direct link to your mindscape where I can talk to you there, and among that there will be other benefits. I can automatically supplement you in a lot of areas, but stuff that we won't discuss until we're more alone. She explained, taking his hand. I know only from what my mother told me and what I can easily understand from others in my litter. She said with a loud sigh. And I noticed something else, Naruto-kun. She frowned, drawing his attention to her face. You never asked how much this would hurt. You only asked me how we do it. And didn't care about the benefits. She smiled at him before she kissed his nose, causing him to scowl and rub it. She had to stop herself from giggling from the sight. You only care about others, not about yourself. You are an honorable man, and that is something else that I could love about you. She said with a small blush. Well, it has always been my way to make people happy or to make them notice me and smile. Naruto explained, beginning to walk toward the bridge again. We need to get to the others. I don't know what they could be plotting. He laughed. Then again, I can honestly say that I am happy for my birthday for once. He said, blushing as he looked at her, then to his sword. I am gonna have to ask her how to use one of these weapons. She heard him whisper to himself. Before she could ask him however what he meant, they were within sight of the bridge. Hokage's office, Konoha. Minato was quietly walking through the halls of the Hokage Tower under a henge, trying to stay out of the way of repair and hazard crews walking through trying to fix something that had happened. As he walked through the doors to the Hokage office, he saw that a trio of heads hung outside the windows of the office, with Sarutobi leaning out of his chair. A smile was gracing the man's face as he stared out of the window. So, they tried something so soon? Minato asked, walking toward the windows. Yeah, said something in the regards of having you and Naruto killed as soon as you two entered the village. The third Hokage explained. My friend, I know that you are angry and I will admit that I deserve more and more of the anger than you think I do. I tried multiple times to make sure that he was upheld and taken care of. He pleaded. Just as Minato was about to say something, Minato noted multiple smells coming from the other side of the office door. Smiling to himself, Minato couldn't help but scratch his head and smile. Tsume, Hiashi, Shibi, Chaoja, Inuichi, and Shikaku. And you too, my dear Kuromaru. I see I couldn't hide that well, my dear friends, how about you just come on in? He smiled, turning around just in time for the door to open, and he was immediately pounded onto his back by the one-eyed wolf of the Inuzuka clan. How have you been, my old friend? He asked. The last time I saw your furry butt you were still a pup. He yelped as the dog tried to take a bite out of him. Hey now. He yelled. I think you owe a lot of people an explanation, Minato-san. Hiashi began, but was stopped by a dead stare from the blonde as they walked further into the doorway as the door closed ominously. Especially trying to walk past us under a damn hinge. And you think that you can come in here and tell me that I owe you anything, Hiashi-san? Minato growled from below the ball of fur. Kuromaru, could you please get up for me? He asked. The dog quickly plodded over to his master, who bent down and curled her fingers into the fur of his neck. Minato was on his feet immediately, almost instantly rounding on his friends. What the hell are you doing, disobeying my last wishes? He yelled, focusing on all of them. You all promised that you would protect my son. What happened? He yelled, throwing a ball of chakra out the window, shattering all of them at once, causing everyone to gasp at the power. Ain't lost his touch at all. Everyone there thought as they saw the man's face. Beto's office building. Beto was sitting in his office, looking through the doors of his office as he counted out the money from the latest shipments of goods coming to his town. He was quite happy with himself, especially knowing that Zabuza and that bitch of his Haku would have the bridge builder dead very shortly, and then Gato would have the elder man slaughtered and put his pathetic daughter into one of his ever-expanding brothels. He could practically taste the money that he would make off of her alone, much less with Tizuna's daughter in the mix. He sidled up to the window overlooking the river and the port that was ever busy. The distant noises that he didn't understand quite easily was heard on the first floor of the building. He wasn't really worried as he counted in his head how many samurai and thugs that he had at his disposal. Whoever was there would not make it to him. As he turned around, Gato was immediately thrown to the window, a long senbon needle immediately embedding itself into his shoulder, pinning him to the edge of the window. As he struggled, he saw something that he didn't expect to see. Haku, in her new outfit, walking through the doorway to his office. Or at least it looked like the bitch daughter who almost broke his arm for trying to touch the demon of the mist. Taking a look at the new her, he was mildly irritated that she would do this and expect to be paid. "What the hell are you doing, you stupid bitch?" He yelled, trying to grab at the needle to pull it out. "You expect to get away with attacking me like this?" He growled. "I'm not even gonna pay you or your bastard-ass father." He growled. "I am gonna kill him, then sell you to a fucking brothel, you son of a bitch." That was all he was able to get out before an icy needle was thrown into his opening mouth, silencing him before she took the time to cut off his head. Taking a look around, she saw that there was a large pile of money, both Ryu and gold coins, just laying in the corner of the office. Grabbing a larger bag, Haku picked up most of what the bag could carry and proceeded to leave the building, her large smile not even being partially hidden. As she left and was a good 20 feet away, she swiftly snapped her fingers. She immediately cringed as her own special paper bombs exploded, causing the building to implode downward. Konoha Ichiruka ramen stand. Hana and the triplets were sitting at a side table of the stand. Hana having a bowl of ramen with the triplets wasn't something that wasn't abnormal. But the triplets were also enjoying some soup that was specifically drained from the pot by the old man himself just for them and Kuromaru. "You need to get Naruto, and soon, Hana." The female triplet began. I don't know the names of the triplets, so I apologize profusely. I am thus naming the two real males Vigu and Drainu, with a female named Seshimesai, Sesh for short. "Yeah, Hana," Vigu began, drinking some more of his soup. "You know that if you don't do it soon, you'll end up missing your chance." He explained, looking at her as she tried to ignore him as she ate her ramen. "And don't you dare tell us that you don't love him." Sesh growled, watching Hana's mouth flap open in retort. "I know better, so do Vigu and Drainu." She growled, looking up as Hana was approached by Am. "How are you, Hana?" she asked, another bowl of ramen in her hands as she placed it on the table. "I haven't seen much of you lately." She smiled. "Good, I guess." Hana sighed, patting Sesh on the head. "The triplets and I just got done with a mission over in Rice Country." She explained. "Have you seen Naruto lately?" He frowned. "I haven't seen him since before I left and it's his birthday, so I thought I would get him something for it, but I don't know what to get." She frowned. Looking around, Am was visibly frowning. Looking at her father behind the counter, she couldn't help but sigh. "I guess I can talk for a few minutes." She began, taking a seat across from Hana. "What's going on?" the Inyazuka asked before grabbing another mouthful of ramen. "Well, you know how Naruto is about his skills." Am smiled, looking between the dogs and Hana. "Well, let me tell you this then," she began, explaining that Naruto had come to the ramen stand, saying that he and his team had gotten a C-rank mission to the Wave Country. "But he should be fine, right?" Hana asked, holding a necklace in her hands. Caressing the medallion almost lovingly. "I mean, he is strong enough to be able to at the very least take care of himself on a simple C rank, right?" Bridge. Naruto looked at Zabuza and Kushina, trying to figure things out. "Where are Dad and Haku?" he asked, now smiling as he felt Chival pressing her magnificent breasts against his back. "Minato had business at Konoha. And I sent Haku out to kill Gato so that we can relax for a few days." Kushina explained, standing up and turning to him and Chival. "But there are more important matters to discuss." She began, catching everyone's attention. "What are you going to do about Chival? I know she is getting hungry and tired." She sighed. "Well, Mom." Naruto smiled, holding his hand out to Chival, who took it soundly. "I told her that I would give it some time to fully become bonded with her. I just need the time to actually do it." He explained as Chival began kissing his hand lightly. "Well, since you Zabuza and Haku are all staying to wait for the bridge to be finished, you should have the time to do it. Now, head back to the house. I have to head over and pick something up that I left hanging," she said with a smile as she looked at Zabuza. "It shouldn't take her long to come back and get the goodies together." She explained. "Okay, so what are me, Zabuza, and Chival going to do while we wait?" Naruto asked, his voice crackling in worry as he brought Chival closer to him, trying to concentrate as he began kissing his neck and shoulders. Well, I want the three of you to wait for her. At that time it shouldn't be a problem after that to get the bridge done. And as for Chival, you are going to spend the extra time bonding with her. She explained before hopping away with a smile. As soon as she was gone, the two shinobi and demon were greeted with the sight of Haku, appearing with several bags in over her shoulder as she came up to give Naruto a kiss on his lips, then to his and Chival's surprise, she gave the demon girl a kiss as well before walking over to Zabuza. Got it, he was sure as hell easy to kill for someone so damn protected. She said snidely as she walked back over to Naruto and Chival. Naruto and Chival, let's talk. She said, moving around to grab both of their hands as she pulled them away once again. Meet us at Tazuna's house, Zabuza-sama. She smiled as she looked around at them as they walked away. Zabuza was left at the bridge, looking at the sword in his hands. I am going to train this boy like most would not even believe. He growled to himself, slowly raising himself up and walking slowly along the river, contemplating his training that he would give the boy. What if Naruto walks away from his family Sasuke bashing harem, and thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part. Comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys next video.